Travelers on the Omnibus occasionally touches on mature subject matter with mature language. As such, the audience discretion is advised. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Travelers on the Omnibus, a field trip through nerd and pop culture. I'm doing my best Jody Kite impression by being this fired up, but I am James McCarthy.
I'm Brady Davis.
I'm Jody Kite.
I'm Ethan Skinner.
Ladies and gentlemen, later tonight we're going to be talking about our favorite animated TV series. However, speaking of which...
Superhero shows.
That was superhero shows specifically, yes. Thank you. Speaking of superheroes and finishing out superhero stuff, Brady, what have you been doing this week?
So, yeah, I finished up with collecting what I had left to get of Marvel Champions. I'd been a little bit behind, but I'm all caught up now. Except I don't have Deadpool because I'm not going to get him because I just don't... I have a low tolerance for Deadpool nowadays. I'll probably see the movie, but most other things I don't give a shit.
The things I'm seeing of Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm excited to see it.
It's probably going to be a good movie. I might not see it in theaters, but I will definitely see it because I did like the first two.
It's the only movie coming out I know of this year that I want to see in a theater. Mm-hmm. But I think because there's a lot of history there, not just...
I want to see Furiosa, but I just haven't had a chance. I haven't really just been able to make myself go to the
I'm glad
theaters.
Furiosa broke even because it was looking it wasn't going to make any money at all, and that I think that would have been a tragedy.
Well, there's also a problem nowadays where a movie is considered to be a failure if it didn't make like $100 million in the opening weekend, because they have absolutely outrageous. But that's a whole other thing.
Between production budgets and marketing budgets,
they can't sustain AAA anymore.
But it's like Elemental was the Pixar movie was seen to be a failure because it did really poorly at its opening weekend, but it like actually gained, and it ended up making like $450 million or something like that.
And they judge all
like
of
a
that
ridiculous
in like movie theaters.
Yeah,
they don't take into account like the streaming. Like as soon as it hit theaters, it also hit Disney Plus. And
Elemental, I don't think did. I think it was a little bit later.
Because of that situation, Elemental went a little bit later.
Oh, okay.
They weren't doing the right ed, but they also...
Because if it was on streaming...
We're getting off the point.
Yeah, I know, exactly. But if it was on streaming, why go to the theater? Go.
Yeah. That was the problem with their other Pixar movies. So I bought the most recent campaign box for Marvel Champions, and I was able to play through it. It's Age of Apocalypse, which is really interesting. If you've never played one of they're called campaigns, but it's really just a series of boss fights, basically. But there's like a little extra hook in it. And this one had a thing called side missions, where there was an area to the side where they had this specific mission that had this specific bad guy, and you had to send when you played an ally, you had to actually send them over to this area because you couldn't just like defeat that scheme yourself, and you had to do a little bit. It was a little convoluted, but like it ended up working pretty well. I played as Bishop. Bishop was really, really cool because whenever he takes damage, you discard that much from an attack. You discard that many cards off the top of your deck, and you put any card that's a resource card in your hand. So I was running usually in a deck you run like maybe 5-ish resource cards at the most. Like you try to run too many of them because the only thing that they can do is pay for things. They can't do anything else. But because he does so much with resource cards, I was running like 15 in that deck because you would just you wouldn't even defend. You would just take the hit, discard the stuff, and put a whole mess of cards in your hand. Because then he has his uniform that after he does that, you can tap it and you can gain back 1 health for each resource card in your hand. So he was like tanking hits, and as long as he didn't die, he was probably gaining most of that back. And then you also have his rifle, which you tap it to deal 1 damage for each resource card in your hand. So once you got those two things on there, he was like a really, really powerful character, and he was very fun to use. If you didn't get those out, it could be annoying because you could just have a handful of resource cards and nothing that you could do with them, which was very annoying. But he's a pretty cool character. I did not think that I would like him that much. The other character that was in that box, there's always 2 characters, was Magic, who is Colossus's sister, if you're not familiar with them. When she's in hero mode, she plays with the top card of her deck face up, and once per per phase, you can play that card as if it were in your hand at -1 resources. So she basically has an extra hand size, which is really cool. She does things and she has cards that let her manipulate the top card of the deck and like put cards from her hand on top of her deck and things like that. So she's a really cool. The villains were all very interesting. You actually fought Apocalypse twice. You fought the Age of Apocalypse, and then at the very end you fought Apocalypse, the original Apocalypse.
Oh wow.
Age of Apocalypse, he was probably my favorite out of there, because usually if you do all the damage to the villain that's their limit, you go to the next section. You usually try and beat 2 phases of them, but he doesn't do that. If you kill Apocalypse, you just discard any attachment on him. He gains back his health, and then you start back over. You remove threat from the main scheme. So what you have is there's these other side schemes, which are little cards that come out that you have to defeat because you're trying to prove him unworthy. You can't defeat him until you've literally flipped these to get the attachment unworthy. But to do that, you have to defeat his prelates, which are really powerful. If you've ever read the Age of Apocalypse comics, this is like Sinister, Mikhail Rasputin, who's the other ones? Shadow King. Like it's big. These are big, rough characters that you have to defeat.
In their own right, before they're overpowered by Apocalypse.
Yeah. So you have to defeat them and then kill it and then defeat a scheme. So you have to work through this. But you can still like hit Apocalypse and try and like get him, because you don't want if the threat gets all the way on his scheme, you lose. So you also don't want to you want to try and hit him to knock him down too. Plus, he can get attachments out that really make things a pain in the ass. You also there's Dark Beast, and the way that works is he's you're kind of falling through time with him. So at different times you will go to a different place, and a different environment card comes out, which does a whole different thing. And then you shuffle those cards into the deck, so there's more different things like Genosha, the Savage Lands, and the Blue Area of the Moon. That's the 3 areas that you can go to. The other Apocalypse is pretty interesting because he actually has 3 forms that he flips back and forth to, which is something that you usually see with heroes. Like Ant-Man the Wasp can do that. Angel has that too, but he like flips back and forth between 3 things. So he's pretty cool. Overall it was a pretty cool. I played this one, and there was an X-Force one that came out before that. Those are all I'm all caught up, and I'm really happy with it. There's some cool stuff in these, so that's really great. I also started a new book. I'm just going to go over it real quick. I'm just going to talk about it real quick. It's not really like a singular book. It's an anthology. It's called Nordic Visions. It's a book of Nordic speculative fiction, which usually means mostly like sci-fi, but they kind of mean it here as genre fiction. So it's like horror, sci-fi, or fantasy from Nordic writers. A lot of these stories are this is the first time they've ever been in English, so it's interesting. The first one that I'm reading right now is kind of a horror story. It's pretty interesting so far. But it kind of drew me because it was like I've not read. I read a little bit of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and did not like the way he writes, so I didn't.
Steve Larson was very plotting.
Yeah,
like that, especially the first third, because he's setting up this world because it's the first book.
Yeah,
it's just. Have you not heard of Wernerstromgruppen? What about Wernerstromgruppen? Well, here's what about Wernerstromgruppen, and then it just keeps like,
yeah, it was very. I liked the movies, but both movies, but like I just couldn't get into the. So maybe I'll go back one day. I still have it. Maybe I'll go back, but like I haven't read a lot of like Nordic fiction, so like I wanted to read some of that. So this is very interesting. And then I finally was able to read a graphic novel that I've been wanting to read for a very long time. Because it's one of my favorite writer drawer duos, being Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, who have done my favorite Batman story, which is The Long Halloween. Dark Victory is also very, very good. But they also did a Superman comic called Superman for All Seasons, and it is a very, very good comic. It's usually talked about as one of the best Superman stories of all time. And I think when a Superman story is done right, I think he's harder to do than most other DC or really superheroes, period. But when it's done right, like it's one of the best of all time, and this one is. It's a very interesting story. It kind of goes over some origins, but it kind of goes through real quick of like early times when Superman is in Metropolis. An interesting thing that it does that not a lot of that doesn't get that you don't see a whole lot is like the loneliness of being Superman. Just having those abilities and knowing that he's not from Earth and things like that it's a very interesting way of doing things.
Right. That really, for me, like I've read some Superman comics, but the only time that really resonates is in the original movie when he's in the Fortress of Solitude and discovers who he is, and he's just like, I hate this.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of doing it. I think My Adventures with Superman took a little bit from this because he also doesn't quite know where he's from in this one. It also deals a lot with like his relationship with people in Smallville, especially Lana Lang. They're kind of the like his relationship with Lois at this point is not a romantic relationship or even close to that.
There's puppy love there in my. Well, we're talking
Superman
about
for All Seasons.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I could cross with My Adventures. My bad.
Yeah, well, My Adventures, that's a straight up like romantic thing.
Yeah,
that gets into. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this one, it's more of an antagonistic, type of thing. But like Lana Lang, like that's there's actually like a romantic thing there that they discuss and talk about.
I have only one complaint with the things that I've seen of Superman for All Seasons.
Okay.
His face is extremely too small for his head.
He is.
You're gonna find that in many Tim Sale.
He is
things.
drawn in a very exaggerated.
It looks like he ate a lemon and he's trying his best to keep a straight face.
He has a very small face on a very big head.
It is very distracting for me, but other than that,
Tim Sale, I think, with a lot of his stuff, it's kind of an acquired taste because he is so stark with how he draws. But I have read a lot of Tim Sale and especially with Jeff Loeb. And I
showed Jody a picture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
we're showing it to the audience. No,
but I like it, and it is kind of like an old timey ish way of like drawing Superman and stuff like that. So I like it.
Well, I would say for the Sale's art style was very the bridge between what you have now and what you get. Like especially with Superman for All Seasons, that looks like classically drawn. Comic
it's like almost
Superman.
like Max Fleischer.
When he passed away in 2022, I was just really
I
was
didn't
really
know
sad.
that.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I want to go back and read because they did him and Jeff Loeb did a it's not really a series, but it's like a set of stories that were like colors. And I have the first one, which is Spider-Man Blue, which is one of my favorite comics of all time.
Spider-Man Blue, Daredevil Yellow, Hulk Gray.
Hulk Gray.
Because it's all the classic
Captain America White.
America
I think
White.
that was the only other
There's
one.
these classic like Hulk. We know is green. He was gray to begin with.
Yeah.
And so it's a story set and it's not just about that he was gray. It's also about the motif of the color gray.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Blue is about if correct me if I'm wrong because it's been a while since I read it, but it's about there's an underlying sadness to everything.
Oh yeah, that one definitely.
And Daredevil Yellow.
Because Spider-Man Blue is about him remembering when he fell in love with Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
This is him recollecting it from the future.
Yeah.
So,
Gotcha.
he's like literally recording it in his attic.
The tagline for Daredevil is always "He's the man without fear."
Yeah.
And Daredevil Yellow deals with fear, and it's very, very, very.
Yeah.
I wish Jeff Loeb had not turned into a full-on TV and movie producer.
Yeah.
Because the things he was writing in comic books were creative.
When he was good, he was really good.
They were.
He also did some really bad things.
We don't talk about the Ultimates. Do not talk about Ultimates Volume 3.
Yeah, that was really
Scarlet
really bad.
Witch and Quicksilver are siblings who have sexes.
Moving on
And
to
that's-
what else
and that's the
Brady's
start.
been up to.
Thor never spoke with his like Thorian accent in the Ultimates. He was actually some drifter who happened to have the power of the God of Thunder. And then in Volume 3, he's just like, "Yea, verily, forsooth, and what anon." And it's like, what the fuck is going on here?
Ant-Man, or I think at this time he might have been Giant Man, discovers the Blob eating the Wasp.
And not in a sexy way.
And he gets really mad and grows giant and picks the Blob up and bites his head off. The Ultimate Universe mostly sucked.
Spider-Man, the original
The
Ultimate Spider-Man, the
Ultimate
original
Spider-Man.
Ultimate Spider-Man run, and when Miles Morales picks up as Spider-Man, I think it's exceptional.
There was that Spider-Man was almost all. I think the first.
That's because Brian Michael Bendis pretty much wrote
the
all
first
of it.
volume and the first volume of X-Men was pretty good.
Also, if we want to talk about comic book artists, Mark Bagley is for me the artist of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
When I think of Spider-Man being drawn, Mark Bagley is who I think
Okay,
of.
that's good.
I have a question.
Yes.
Going back to the whole blob and
Why?
the
Why would you want to go
why are
back
we-
there?
What else needs to be known? Okay.
I need to ask.
I got you. Okay, here we go. Go
Okay.
for it.
You said that the blob ate the wasp.
Yes.
Is this the wasp in normal human size?
Janet Van Dyne's the
Human-
she hasn't microfized.
like human
yeah,
size.
Human size.
Okay,
And he's just
And he goes, tastes like chicken.
yes.
Okay. I have no more questions.
Aren't you glad you asked a question?
Yeah.
You know which blob we're talking about, right?
I'm assuming
X-Men, the Blob.
Yeah.
X-Men,
He's
the
like
Blob,
4 times
yes.
bigger than
Yeah,
most
when you
people.
when you punch him in the stomach, it goes because
Yeah.
he's fat.
Yeah.
Remember fat jokes?
Yeah, he's just a flat slob.
Yeah.
I'm
Piece of
all
shit.
familiar with them. Yes.
Yes. All right, Brady, you done?
Yeah.
All right.
Fuck. How can I follow?
All right.
How can I go further than that?
I know exactly. We've gone too far, too fast, too hard, too often. Anyway, Jody, I believe you have been engaged in the world of video gaming.
Yeah, so like they put Essentials and the other premium on PlayStation Network on sale for their quote unquote days of play thing they do once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year, whenever. And so for a measly $8 more for the next 3 months, I'm able to access a lot of more games to play that I normally wouldn't dip my toes in, because even for like $10, because some of them are absolute trash. And I'm going to go over some of those right now. Some of which I had to wait 12 hours to download and only played for 1 hour. GP Moto 23.
What the fuck?
It's a motorcycle simulation
Yeah.
racing game. I played it for an hour. You couldn't, by the way, adjust the sensitivity controls because they wanted it to be impossible to drive.
Mm-hmm.
So I uninstalled it after an hour.
Yeah.
Then I thought, ooh, there's a Vampire the Masquerade role-playing game, air quotes.
Ooh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines, right? One of the greatest RPGs of all time.
No,
No.
Jay, not that one.
What are you talking about then?
I've already forgotten what it was called. Hold on. Let me remind myself by looking at the screen cap I took because I only played it for an hour. It was Vampire the Masquerade. No, continue, please.
Okay, sorry. Okay, rewind. 1, 2, 3.
Vampire the Masquerade. Swan Song.
That's a counterspell in Magic.
Yeah, it is. So usually when you think of like tabletop RPGs that are like converted into digital versions where like and they call it quote unquote a role playing game. Ethan, what do you do normally when you're playing a video game that's coining itself as a role playing game? What's the first thing do you think you get to do?
Have options.
Okay, that's true. That's a very broad statement.
Like the options menu where you can
Like
set your
options as in like you're presented with a situation. What do you do?
No.
And I have-
You're already thinking like halfway through a role playing game.
Okay.
Yeah. What's the first thing you do?
in a RPG?
Okay, character creation.
Yeah, you don't get to do that.
Then it's not an RPG.
Yo, no, it
That's
is
totally an RPG.
It is an RPG.
You fool.
You get
Okay.
forced into
Wearing a
playing.
Beholder t-shirt.
You are correct. I am a fool. Yes.
Why play one of the clans from Vampire the Masquerade when you can play all of them in a very short period of time? I don't know where I'm supposed to put points in anything because I'm playing a Malkavian, a Ventru, a Giovanni.
Huh.
That was in the first
How does that
out.
even work?
Yeah, I didn't understand anything that was happening. It gave me like the old the Fallout 3 two-choice scenarios where like, oh, thanks for your illusion of choice that doesn't matter game. Fuck you.
It's not even an illusion of choice. It's either save the orphanage or beep the orphanage.
Yeah.
Put whatever you want to put in that beep.
I deleted the orphanage off of my PlayStation.
There you go. And by that, he means Swan Song.
Yes, by that I mean Swan Song. Then, because I'm an idiot, I thought, the vampire game wasn't terrible. Let me try the Werewolf the Apocalypse video game that's also free called Earthblood.
So wait, do that one more time.
From your lips to God's
Right,
ears.
wrong thing. I did the wrong button. Disregard everything I've ever done and will ever do.
Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood.
Sure.
That's a bunch of words I just said.
Yeah, that is a bunch of words.
Hey, remember that part where we were talking about like 2 minutes ago about how at the beginning of the game you get to create your character?
That's not an option.
That's not an option.
Were these
wow.
done by the same developer?
I think so.
Okay.
They came out in the same year. You could tell. So
I can't wait for Mage, the Ascension, the Birthing.
and so in my quest to find a decent racing game, there's like about 10 of them that are available for free with this tier. I started with the Moto game. I downloaded NASCAR Heat 5.
Ugh, man. You're
gonna
None of these are mobile games.
no.
None of these asked you to give us $10 for 5 extra
No.
boobits.
No. Here's the crazy thing. Out of all those games, that's the better one so far.
ugh, man.
The
that's-
controls are
that's
actually
sad.
pretty good in this. So
This is not an adventure. This is a demon march.
yeah.
God damn, man.
Yeah. Well, I have it for 3 months, so I'm grinding. I'm gonna play pretty much everything a little bit here and there. But I will say that I found the higher tiered games that are available. Currently, you can play Red Dead 2. So
Okay.
that's probably going to be like the next actual game I play because I haven't played that one yet. Grand Theft Auto 5 is available, but only for a short period of time, so I'm not even going to bother because I think I could buy that used for $15
Yeah.
because it's been out for a decade. But that's the video games, and then I watched an episode of Wrestle Talk where Luke Owen talked about what caused the failure of the WWE version of ECW. And
Okay, I didn't know that. That's what I remember when you were explaining this. I didn't hear the WWE version of.
well, it was
ECW.
WWECW.
Yeah. Okay.
WeCW.
WeCW.
That term was coined by Lance Storm. WeCW.
Yeah.
Spoilers, there were a lot of things that were going on.
Yeah.
That's usually the case.
A whole lot of things going on.
Yeah. When your first fucking episode, the fucking zombie comes out.
So since it was Sci-Fi Channel, they actually initially wanted it to be an alien.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, the Sandman defeated him, and the zombie apocalypse was stopped by the
Yeah.
Sandman.
Paul Heyman was quoted saying to Tommy Dreamer, in a year, this shit ain't gonna float anymore.
Yeah.
That was before the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
It lasted 4 years because Sci-Fi kept wanting them to be on there because it was the highest.
It was legitimately their best rating.
It was the highest rated show.
Yeah, because Sci-Fi was playing nothing but like the worst movies of all time, and Twilight Zone at 3 a.m.
Here's
They
another.
had Eureka.
Here's
Sure.
another like juxtaposition.
Now I'm not saying that Twilight Zone was
Right.
bad for them to have on it.
Right.
Twilight Zone was probably the best thing that they had going for them right at that time.
Before it was rebranded as Spike, the Nashville network changed their moniker to TNN. We've got Pop because they were trying to change their whole gimmick for their channel. And that's where ECW aired for the 9-10 months. It was supposed to be a year. ECW aired 1 hour on Fridays, and it was the highest rated show on that network because their other highest rated show before that was Roller Jam, a scripted roller derby reality TV program.
Yep.
That because ECW was on there and then soon to be WWE, that's a different story. Influenced the showrunners to want to write wrestling gimmicks into their roller derby show.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
But anyway, it's a phenomenal video. It's about 45 minutes long. I suggest if you like wrestling or the history of why things are, check it out. It's pretty cool. I did some other stuff, but we ain't got time for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's one way to cut that. So Ethan, you're not dying anymore.
I'm not dying anymore.
There you go.
It's confirmed, not dead.
So you explained to us you had like a big 3-day, 5-day, some odd weekend. Explain the adventures.
I somehow escaped work for a brief moment in time, and it was possibly the best off days I've had in quite some time. I basically went around to multiple people's homes and commandeered their pools.
I thought you went on a rampant B&E spree. Like, what the fuck? I went to a bunch of people's homes.
He didn't say that he got permission before
That
he
is
did
true.
that.
No.
So
A lot of time just...
If he doesn't go in the house, it's just trespassing. He has to break in. And
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that's why they have the pool outside.
There
So-
you go. No interior pools. No.
But no, it's just a lot of times swimming, being with friends, just a much needed like mental health days. I feel like this was like the most productive I've been, just kind of like hobby wise.
okay.
Because I was actually awake. I actually had a normal sleep schedule in like 3 years, and so.
That's because you wake with the night and sleep with the day. Like, let me say this for every person everywhere that's working a gray shift. We love you and we hope the best for you because we know that living after midnight gets very hard after the novelty of it wears off.
Yeah, I did it for 7 years. It fucking sucks.
This is year.
Well, I did it for 6 years.
This is year 3 for me, and it is taking its toll, but we're surviving. During my exodus, I've gotten many things done. Me and Bianca, we started watching some of the Planet of the Apes movies.
Okay, got back on the ape train.
Okay, I know that she is not. I know for a fact that Bianca would not like the original movies. So we started with Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Okay, yeah.
We watched that, and then Dawn. And we're planning on watching War sometime in the next few days. I am very impressed with Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
Yeah, his performance for Caesar. Everyone else that was in a motion capture for Maurice, Rocket, Koba, Blue Eyes. It's just everyone that played an ape. Phenomenal work.
Yeah. I really liked the first one. I just never got around for some reason to watching the other two. Even though I heard that they were much better than the Rise. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And also like they really turned that franchise around from the original reboot that happened in 2001 or 2002.
Yeah, that's when the bar's on the floor.
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton, Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. Did they make 2 of those?
No,
just
one.
Just the one. They were supposed to be more. I think it was supposed to be a trilogy.
When he came back to Earth and Abraham Lincoln was an ape.
Abraham Lincoln, sir.
No, I will
Lincoln.
allow many things. I can't allow
Yeah,
that
they-
into my
they
head,
went
my
ahead-
head and my heart.
They went ahead. Here's a spoiler for you, Ethan.
Okay.
They went ahead and skipped like 4 or 5 original Planet of the Apes movies and went straight to the fucking weird shit.
I will say that one had like the special effects for the apes were really good.
Yeah,
in that one.
that
but,
was
like,
because they
nothing
used
else.
it was practical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nothing else in that was
No.
great. Tim Roth was
Tim
chewing
Roth-
scenery
right,
all over the
right.
fucking place. So,
He's done that like with so much stuff
well,
lately.
that's mostly what he
Like,
does,
well,
and I'm not saying that's a bad thing for him.
But
Like, he makes-
specifically, like I'm thinking of the Sensational She-Hulk, where he's the Abomination.
yeah,
and
but he
he's-
was chewing scenery in the first
The
movie
original
he was
Incredible
in.
Hulk. I guess
yeah.
because I saw it so recently that
Yeah.
it just really it just sticks out in my
He
head.
kind of did that in Hateful Eight too.
Yeah.
The beginning of Dawn was showing the title role, the director, actors, people involved in the movie. You hear in the background that the virus that was released from the science lab has spread all over the world, and there are multiple countries that are issuing a mandated quarantine. And me and Bianca just kind of look at each other like, this is like 6 years before the world actually shut down.
You
So,
internally just
Yeah.
go, no.
Little did 2014 know.
Yeah, it's like all those fuckers who was like, yeah, let's watch Outbreak and Contagion when this goes. And it's like, fuck you, I don't want to watch that shit.
Yeah.
Funny that they like that's in Rise, but only if you watch the credits. If you turn it off right when
Yeah,
the movie
okay,
ends,
so-
you don't see any of that shit.
So the very last scene is you see the neighbor of James Franco's character. He's a airplane pilot that got infected when a scientist sneezed in his face.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you see him get board a plane, and then the title roll and credits start rolling and everything. You see planes like highlighted.
Yeah, they do
planes
like
go-
an animated thing where it shows the spread of it. Like he goes here and then it like becomes
Right.
red. and then
Have you ever played Plague Inc?
Yes.
It's that.
it's they basically do play
The old Indiana Jones map crawl.
yeah.
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 They kind of do that, except it's the spreading of the virus.
Yeah.
Because I remember the first time I watched Rise, I was like, how the fuck did they even get there? And then I rewatched and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I missed that part. I didn't pay attention.
I like how they space out the movies. There's a 10-year gap in between from the end of Rise and the beginning of Dawn, so that way they can it shows the progression of both apes, the rise of apes and the decline of humans. So that will eventually lead into the original movies, and so that I very much like.
And I agree too. Like watching these newer ones before you watch the originals, because it gives you more context for what happens. Because in the original movie, you're not really, because it's part of it's like a mystery trying to figure out what's going on.
Well, you had the big twist at the end of the
Because
first
there's a
one,
twist
and
at the end that like they didn't know they were on Earth that whole time.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that, and there's also like you have an explanation for why it happened.
yeah, that's basically what the sequels do, is getting
Right.
you to the point of how that
more
happened.
what happens.
There's some weird time travel shit. It gets like
there's
super
yeah.
weird.
Yeah,
I don't think there was ever a virus in the original movie series.
No, I think
so.
it was like, because this was like the 70s.
I think it was just the nuclear
It was
holocaust.
nuclear holocaust was
Right.
the thing.
Right.
So like that's how, it was the 70s and the 80s, the Cold War era.
Yeah, the
like
Cold War.
that's what's
It
going
was
to be
always-
that's what's going to kill everybody.
That's why Soylent Green was so interesting, because it wasn't that.
I am eventually going to get to those movies. However, I think Bianca's more than likely going to tap out at.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
it's also
I
the-
think you should watch at least the first one. It's really good though.
She doesn't like how the apes look.
Their makeup is amazing for 1968
yeah,
though.
that is true.
I'll
Yes.
say it again. Their makeup is great for 2024.
Yeah.
I actually I watched Planet of the Apes. I took a it was philosophy and film class, and we watched Planet of the Apes, and that was only like 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, and it's like but it is also, it's an older movie.
It
so
is.
It
It's
is
dated in a lot of ways.
It is paced like an older movie.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's also true.
So there is also that, but I think it's still a pretty interesting movie.
I think that movie turns around right when like they get like the first 15 minutes into it.
Yeah,
and that
there's
that
some
the
setup.
gorilla on the horse really fucks you up, like when you haven't seen that movie before.
Besides movies, I've been doing some video games. I 100% another crab's treasure.
Nice.
Okay.
I defeated the carbonara consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, it was at like one of the very early stages that I just happened to miss as I was exploring the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a good thing that you didn't come across it early on.
Oh, it was a pushover.
Yeah, by then it was, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I got very angry at my computer today.
Okay.
I was talking with one of my coworkers about Moto, Magic the Gathering.
Magic
Online.
the Gathering Online.
And he was saying that he's been enjoying Vintage Cube Draft. There's a lot of events going on, and it's like, that him talking about it and me just like casually watching Vintage Cube, just kind of made me want to do it.
Right.
So I installed Moto on my computer, and then it got to the point where I'm trying to make an account. And then it hits me with the unable to connect to your network.
Okay.
So I spend a good 30 minutes trying to figure out, okay, is it an issue on my end? Is the servers not working or anything like that? And then I'm told, oh, it's maintenance day. I'm like, interesting. So I wait my time. I get back into it. The website says that all servers are active. Cool. My friend is currently in a cube draft right now. I go put my login stuff in. Unable to connect to network. Ooh. So I'm like, okay, restart the computer, reboot it up, open a client. Hey, there's an update. Cool. I'm able to get everything. I'm successfully logged in. I go to participate in the draft. It is not available to me because Moto is free, but in order for you to actually
10 tickets
for you to enjoy, like get access to like trading with friends, chatting with friends, and participating in events, you have to get the starter kit.
Yes, you do.
Yes, so
it's normally $10.
$5. It is $5.
Okay, it used to be $10.
So I'm trying to get the starter kit. It takes me to an external website through the client, and I'm like, okay,
This sounds like a scam. It probably isn't.
I'm going to stop Ethan for 1 second and just let the studio audience know that Moto's been around for a long time. That client is very, very, very old. Continue.
Oh, hang on. So it takes me to this external website. I'm like, okay, cool. I see the item in my
McAfee.
cart. I put my information in. I do everything.
Yeah.
Buy.
Yep.
We're sorry, we've encountered an error.
Oh, no.
So I'm like, fuck. So refresh the page, go back, put all the information in, purchase. We're sorry, the website is currently inactive at this time.
Oh, my God.
Cool. Let me go back to the client and see if anything changed. I go, nothing has changed. So I'm like, okay, let me close it and reboot it to see if there's something wrong on my end or if it's a server
I was
issue.
hoping that you went back to the client and it was fucking Slender Man and it was a jump scare.
Hang on. I close it, I reboot it. There's no updates. I go to put the information, my login information in. I see the little waiting circle. We're sorry, we're unable to connect to the network at this time. And I lose it.
Yeah.
I'm at this point an hour and 30 minutes into trying to spend. I'm wanting to spend money to do this. And
You might want to check your bank account because they might have accidentally charged you several times for that shit.
Right.
Brady, it wouldn't have been an accident. I'm just saying.
so
Yeah.
either I am going to look at my phone and see $10 missing, or I'm just not going to attempt this again.
I think you should try again, but,
Cool.
Yeah, keep beating your head against that brick wall.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
It's funny to us.
Yes, I'm glad the 4 people in this room have entertainment.
Well, it's more of your aggressive anger.
Well, then it's also you get to look back on that now.
Well, yeah.
like the anger in the moment, obviously. No,
Well, yeah.
like, I don't want anybody at this table or really anybody listening to this podcast right now. But those are some of the funniest stories when we were just absolutely frustrated
Of
by the
course.
entirety of the
This
world.
is very much reminding me of when I tried to play Elden Ring for the first time.
Let me explain to you
It could be
something.
worse. You could have, waited for somebody at the New Orleans airport for like an hour and like then got pneumonia from it because they never showed up.
I had to go through the same process, except it was days to retrieve my Ableton information because it was under an email that I had no longer any access to, nor did I have access to the backup thing that they had to. So I had to call customer support. Ableton is set in Germany. I didn't speak to a non-English speaker, but
This is why I hate my email address,
Right.
Because it's super long, and
Right.
it's a little bit, honestly, because it's my old USM email address, so it's a little bit weird. But like, I'm not changing it because just too much shit is connected to it. I'm just not changing it.
And here's the thing. When I bought Ableton, the second tier of it was $400. I got it on sale for $300, but it was $400 regular. So $300. Even though this was like 8 years ago, I still wanted to recover my account information so I could use the program so I could make music again.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So anyway, continuing on.
Other than being mad at an external client, I don't believe there's one last thing. I've been slowly and steadily getting completing some magic decks.
Nice.
For an upcoming thing that we are doing, and also getting ready for the pre-release for Modern Horizons 3 coming out. Other than that, that has been me.
What about your anniversary?
Oh yeah, it was our anniversary. Okay,
Bianca, would you like to take a microphone and express some things right now?
Okay.
Are you sure? You sure? We'll express them for you then. What the fuck, Ethan?
okay.
Jesus Christ, man.
God damn it!
It was our anniversary. We had an
Okay,
amazing
we've
day.
established
I can't be in here when the murder starts. I
I'm
can't.
sleeping on the couch.
No, I'm gonna get
we-
shot. I'm too close to you. I'm gonna get shot.
Okay. We had an amazing day for our anniversary.
Okay.
We originally had plans to go to New Orleans, and
That didn't
Nolans,
happen.
bro.
we were either going to walk the French Quarter. We were going to either go to.
Were you gonna wait for an airplane for 2 hours, but nobody told you that the airplane was going to arrive?
Did you just decide to go to Giuseppe's?
Did you not?
Oh, what a plan
We-
B!
You got Alzheimer's and just forgot.
Hey, it's an Italian restaurant. You like Italian? That'd be
Early
great.
onset dementia.
We had days leading up to our anniversary.
I have a
we
feeling-
made-
Yeah, you did when you went to Giuseppe's.
We had made plans
Yep.
to go to New Orleans for our anniversary.
It sounded
Nolans,
like
bro.
he didn't have beignets.
The night before,
Definitely not.
we decide, hey, we've had a very busy past few days. Do you just want to go to Texas Roadhouse for dinner and go play D&D with our friends? I'm like,
That's a good audible. No, I
Okay.
respect that audible. Yeah.
that is exactly what we did.
That's good.
So,
That's good.
We go to Gulfport.
What were you planning to do in New Orleans?
Like I said, we were either going to like walk the French Quarter and just kind of like window shopping, go to one of the local.
Real talk. If you plan on that again, I'm addressing you both. If you plan on that again, I have a friend in the French Quarter that does the mule taxis. That does the walk around and like explains the area. Let me know if you're doing that, and I'll try to get y'all not for any kind of discount. In fact, pay him double. Goddamn.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
Just hand him my wallet.
yeah, just hand him your wallet. Whatever is necessary.
It'll
will be that
save
much
you the
lighter.
trouble of being mugged later.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
No, he's in control of the mules. He'll just mule kick all of the people away. It'll be great.
Gotcha. Before we went to Texas Roadhouse, I brought her to Barnes and Nobles, and I gave her free range to pick whatever.
Oh man, you are
items
a
that she
brave
wanted.
man.
She picked out some books, and we have a new Lego set
Oh,
that we're
okay.
going to be
Yeah.
building.
Nice.
We have a giant big ass cat that we're going to build.
Oh, okay.
Where the
Okay.
cat
What
head,
type of cat? Don't answer her. What type of cat? It's a tuxedo cat.
Oh, okay.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
a tuxedo cat where
Just to let you know, the
head-
Criterion Collection sale is in July, and you get 50% off of all Criterion Collection.
Yeah.
the head and the mouth moves.
Oh, okay.
So So like the cats that we already have, it is going to be staring at me and yelling at me
There you go.
Nice.
before I get yelled at again. I don't think I'm missing anything else.
You could have mentioned the lake.
The lake?
What
lake.
about the lake at the Roadhouse? There was a lake at the
Oh, so there was a downpour in
Yeah, there was.
in Gulfport.
it was
And
across the
It was
coast.
across the coast.
We get to Gulfport and we go to Barnes and Nobles. No rain. We're in there for about 30 minutes.
Only rain.
We walk out. The sky is gray. I see nothing but water all around us. I run to our vehicle. I get the car and I bring it to her to pick her up. We immediately go to the restaurant. I drop her off in the front. I find the closest parking spots,
Which is not
available.
close at all.
Yeah.
By the time I get from my vehicle to the
Soaked.
doors, it looked like I had just stood in the rain and fell backwards onto the ground into the puddles surrounding.
See, if you would have just stayed in Barnes and Noble for 15 more minutes.
Oh no. It lasted for the entirety of us eating.
Oh, nice.
By the time we were finished eating and we were walking to our vehicle, my car was in the middle of a lake. I parked right in front of a ditch where the water is meant to drain into.
They don't drain after a certain point.
No.
Yeah.
The ditch was probably like 2 feet deep.
Stay away from ditches and thunderstorms.
The ditch was completely full, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
water was up to almost close to my rims.
Yes.
Is there anything else I'm forgetting, Bianca?
Okay.
That
You're good.
that is me now.
That's when you make shit up, Bianca.
Yeah.
Make shit up. It's like, yeah, what about the 6'6" guy you had to kill to defend my honor?
What about the mushrooms?
What about the mushrooms? What about the mushrooms, Ethan?
mushrooms?
The mushrooms. Oh yeah, you definitely took mushrooms. If you're asking the mushrooms like that, then yeah, absolutely.
The mushroom.
The mushrooms.
Were mushrooms involved, Bianca? Okay, no mushrooms were involved.
That
Should've-
no
should've
was
did this.
like up to the left and then down to the right. So that could have been yes and no at the same time. There you go. All right, there we go. All right, I'm going to blow through this one real quick because I've been playing the shit out of XCOM Enemy Unknown with the expansion pack Enemy Within attached to it. I was going to go through more of it, but I have almost 200 hours lifetime playthrough, not just in this last week. That would have been impossible. But I've been playing it, so I would like to let everybody know their characters and where they're from in the XCOM. First of all, we have Brady Smokes Davis. He is a support. He's an offensive support, so he basically what it is, he gets in position, drops smoke on himself. Everybody shoots at him, everybody misses, and then he just systematically picks people off while the snipers in the back who have squad sight also shoot at who he's doing it. So okay, Brady is from Israel. You can't change nationality in XCOM Enemy Unknown. You can do it in XCOM 2. But again, then we have Jody Higher Kite. He is from France. He is a sniper. I put him in Archangel armor so he can fly above the field. And then when I give him squad sight. So he just basically stays at the back of the map the entire time. And then when somebody spots someone, he just shoots them. And then if they're in the open, he gets in the zone. So he keeps shooting more people. It's great.
Back when COD was good, that's
go.
what I did.
We got Ethan Winter Skinner. He is from Spain. He is a heavy. He is also a psychic, so he's able to use mindfuckery. It is very funny. We have a friend of the show, Kevin Blackhawk Gallo. Kevin is from Chicago, the Chicago Blackhawks, and I found an armor scheme that looked just like the Blackhawk armor. He is also from Israel. He is an assault. He gets up close to people with a shotgun and blows them the fuck away. We have Bianca, the Prophet Binion. She is the healing support on the team. She's able to heal people like 8 times a match for 10 hit points. Great. She is also from Israel. Yes, she's the Prophet from Israel. No problems there. And finally, the only nickname I picked was Oh, so actually, I did pick Kevin's because Blackhawk. I did pick that for him. But the other one I picked is Christopher Gomez because every time he snipes somebody, he hits them in the head all the time. So he hits them in the dome. So he's Christopher Gomez. He is from China, and so there you go. That's exploits in XCOM, and that's what I've been doing this week. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping by on the bus this week.
I just want to say that
no.
I don't know how comfortable I feel being a character in a game with permadeath.
You haven't died yet.
Yet.
I gave
It's fucking XCOM, isn't it?
I'm the heavy psychic, so
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally 7 people shot at you and none of them hit.
Well, I'm glad
including
to
the
hear that.
sectopod, which is basically like Big Zam. Every weapon from
You said that like I'm supposed, like that was a descriptor that I was supposed to know. What the fuck is Big Zam?
Gundam.
Okay.
Big Zam.
Big Zam.
The big green
Giant
Xeon
robot that is nothing but a body and 2 legs.
and 2 legs and the giant laser in the front.
I'm not familiar with that one. Don't look it
That's
up.
my-
I'm not looking
Nope.
at
That's
it.
my
Nope,
favorite
I'm doing
Gundam. I don't like any other Gundam. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, as I was saying,
I don't like the main Gundam. I'll tell you that right now.
I like the main Gundam.
Amuro's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not a fan.
I like
like
the
it.
I like the Shogun look to it. I will say that. So yeah, Big Zam and Amuro's. Yeah,
Not
that's
looking
big,
at it, so you might as well just.
Then I'm gonna be like this until
Then your
we're
arm's
good.
going to get tired.
No, slime is
No,
there.
slime
It's
is supporting
perfect.
me.
It's perfect cushioning.
Okay.
It's great. Anyway, but before more shenanigans.
The problem is like too many
oh
people.
no, shenanigans!
Too many
happen
people
again.
pilot that same Gundam. It's not just Amuro.
Yeah.
But continue
But
on.
there we go. But who did it best? Amuro Ray.
He's a whiny bitch. Anyway,
Not like Shinji.
yeah, you're right.
There you
Well,
go.
I mean, that's a low fucking bar.
That is
Come on now.
That you can't even limbo that bar.
I
It's
like
the
how
way
the
it is.
turtle's smiling.
Yeah, it's great. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the bus this week. If you have any feedback for us, travelers on the omnibus at gmail.com. Again, that is travelers, 1L on the omnibus at gmail.com. Jody, how else can they engage with us?
You can message us directly through our Spotify and take place in any polls. This next one is, when's Ethan going to give up trying to show Brady this mech that he's not looking at?
Yeah, we're literally reaching over
he will
tables
eventually
to
get
hit
tired
buttons.
of the bit.
There you go. This is his lifelong bit. I don't know.
I'm not
that.
even getting up now, and he's moving his arm. It's great.
Also, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for joining us. If you would like to share this experience with friends, but they don't watch or listen to podcasts on other.
He definitely
I swear
can't
to
see
God.
it now
Yeah,
since we're both doing
You're
this.
John Cena-ing him. What the hell? Good God. You can't John Cena Big Zam.
I'm going to show Brady Big Zam.
We're available on
Keep
Spotify,
Big Zam in your pants. Buckaroo.
Amazon, YouTube Music, and Apple. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the first half. Here comes half number 2. So, ladies and gentlemen, our topic this week is animated superhero TV series. I can pretty much say for everybody, we come from different places and times in both space and time. But if there's one thing that has been kind of common throughout all of our journeys through nerd and pop culture, it is the animated superhero series. And we're going to start with probably the proto version of this that didn't require a television, but did require a movie screen. Jody, tell us about Max Fleischer and the Superman series.
Yeah, so historically, like the Superman comic book came out, Action Comics number 1, right?
Yeah,
came
I
out
think so.
in 1938,
Something like that.
I
yeah.
believe. And I want to say that the Fleischer cartoon shorts that aired in theaters
It was in the 40s.
was in the early 40s. I think
Yeah.
it might have been even during the war,
Yeah.
I want to say.
Yeah, I think it was one of those. It also happened during the war. Yeah, these were in between. Like people would just go and spend like hours in the theater, and they would just watch a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, back then, just quick aside, theater experiences back then were, since television didn't really exist until much later, you would pay for a matinee ticket, and they had serialized programming, much like, the Flash Gordon and shows like that, which would later inspire George Lucas's Crawl in Star Wars, if nothing else, and episodic things of that nature.
They would also have like newsreels. And
They would
things
have newsreels.
If you've watched the part of Roger Rabbit where they're hiding out in a theater,
right,
that's pretty accurate to how it was.
yeah, and even in the South Park movie, bigger and
Longer
and uncut,
Yeah.
they actually like parody those old newsreel things they used to show in theaters. They would show like these like short things in between movies to give people a break in between movies because it would be like an 8-hour experience.
Kind of like an intermission.
Yeah, sort of like
yeah.
an intermission, sort of like something for everybody, something for the kids, something for the adults, to give you a reason to go to the theater. And it was an all-day experience. And these Max Fleischer shorts still hold up, in my personal opinion, in a lot of ways.
I can't remember where we got it from, but I had a videotape that had a couple of these on there, and I remember watching them. These are like the original. This is like the closest to the original idea of Superman, because Superman couldn't fly in the original comic. This Superman couldn't. He could leap tall buildings in a single bound, but he couldn't.
He couldn't fly.
He was faster than a locomotive, but he wasn't. He couldn't fly. He wasn't quite as strong or as powerful as he would become.
He punched things a lot.
Yeah, he did punch things a lot. But yeah, I've watched. I grew up watching a couple of like the same ones just in repeat. There was one where they found a dinosaur in ice, and the ice melted because the just a freak thing of like the air conditioning broke.
Right.
So Superman had to basically fight Godzilla. This is basically what it was. I also had one where I also remember one, and I didn't remember it until I was looking this up, where somebody had created these like just boxy robots that all had numbers on them.
Right.
And he had to fight a whole bunch of them. They were like big, tall robots.
I don't think originally they were in Technicolor either. I don't think that happened.
I think they started in black and white,
Right.
and then as color happened, they
started,
came out,
and
yeah.
the colors are so bright in those.
They're kind of like you, Brady. When I was growing up, my grandmother had a lot of these she used to have all these like Hanna-Barbera TV show collections, the Max Fleischer cartoons like Betty Boop, Popeye the Sailor,
Yeah.
and Superman. One of the earliest things that I remember is Superman and the Mad Scientist.
Yeah, that's one of the big
one
ones.
that I saw.
This
yeah.
is when an evil scientist on an island kidnaps an airplane pilot, and Superman is on his way to save her, and I think he's flying in this one. But the mad scientist has a laser that's like dead set on him, and what he does is he punches the lasers out of his way.
Yes.
Like, and the scientist is like in a fury, putting everything in overload, and just like, the only person you can think of to punch a laser is Superman.
Right.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, that actually, a lot of that set precedent for like later stuff in the comic books, because, you know, back then the people that did the comic book or whatever, just, you know, they got money for the rights for somebody else to make the thing.
Yeah.
So they just took whatever liberation they wanted to, and because there wasn't really, you know, superheroes didn't have like your supervillains or any of that.
Yeah,
you
at
know?
this point in time, both like, especially like Superman, he was like, there would be some thug that he was beating up, some just random criminal,
Right.
And then Lois Lane would almost find out he's Superman, and that's almost every episode,
Right.
every comic book issue at this time.
To me, this era of Superman would be the one to save the woman that's tied to the railroad tracks.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, there's also one of the episodes that's like really famous for these shorts was the scene where there's a train track missing between two cliffs, and he uses his body to bridge the gap.
Yeah, I remember that one too. I think it was like there was just a videotape that had like a few of the same ones over and over that everybody watched.
They only made, I want to say they only made maybe no more than 20 of those.
Probably,
maybe
yeah.
not even that many. But
because these were maybe like 10, 15 minute shorts.
They were about like 10 to 15 minute shorts, and they typically only made like a handful of them a year for a while.
Yeah,
and then we skip to pretty much straight to the 60s.
Yeah, it's really like the next big things are like in the 60s and the 70s and 80s. That's like the next kind of era of those, because there's a New Adventures of Superman.
Yeah.
And some of these things we might, because this one I don't remember ever watching, but I think some of these things we might be remembering from those if we go back and look at it. But this is one that I wasn't familiar with. I just wanted to write it down to say like they continued with with Superman stuff.
Animation wasn't as awesome as it was.
And I think
back in
this version of Superman is what would be in the Super Friends because that was later in the 70s.
For sure.
Started in the 70s and go into the 80s.
Marvel started in the early to mid 60s, I think.
I know the Spider-Man cartoon, the first one that's just Spider-Man, that was 67 when that started.
Right. There's Spider-Man that around that same time period. There was a collection of shorts of Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Prince Namor.
Yeah, Fantastic Four was in 67. Yeah. This is where you get Herbie because they were afraid that the kids would see the Human Torch and would set themselves on fire.
Right.
I remember like renting a Fantastic Four video that just had a couple of the shorts in there, and I was so pissed off that the Human Torch wasn't in this. I was like, what the fuck is Herbie?
Yeah.
Fuck Herbie.
They weren't.
And then I found one and then later on they added, it's either an early one or a later one. I found one where they added him in. And I was like, oh, yes, awesome.
Yeah, for them to save money on animation, there was a lot of still shots with lips moving, kind of like how they do anime now, depending.
Yeah. This is also, I remember there was an episode of the Fantastic Four where they fought Magneto, and he literally like... He was like robbing a bank and he was grabbing sacks of money and he literally had to say like, oh, I hate that I cannot move these sacks of money because they aren't made of metal. And just in case a kid was watching this and wondering, why didn't you just lift them up or whatever? But yeah, this is where also I think Jay was talking about if you listen to any MF Doom record, this is where a lot of the Doctor Doom clips come from is this era in the 67. Yeah, I think from there it goes to like Super Friends and
Super
or was
Friends.
there something else?
Yeah, Super Friends.
Well, yeah, there was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends also happened around this time. This was in the early 70s, I believe.
Well, actually, no, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends is 1981.
Oh, it's 1981.
Yeah,
I'm
1980.
sorry, I didn't have the
Right.
era
I
on
think
that one.
I think the Super Friends started in either 79 or 80 or around that time period.
It actually it started in 73.
Oh,
like
okay.
The first iteration, but they had like multiple. It was like, you know how they'll change the name of the show or whatever.
Right.
They had like multiple iterations all the way up to like 1986.
They went to the all new Super Friends hour in 77.
Yeah, and it was like Super Friends Challengers or something.
Challenge of the
like
Super Friends,
Challenge of the
78.
Super Friends.
Yeah.
They just kept rebooting
The
it
world's
as
greatest Super Friends,
Yeah.
79.
Is that where Aqua Teen got the idea after like season 5 to just start changing the title of the
so,
show?
yeah.
Okay.
I think
that makes a lot of sense.
I want to say the earlier iterations had Wendy and Marvin. They were just like two human teenagers
two humans with a monkey.
with the Gleek.
Yeah, with
Oh no,
Gleek.
Gleek was the Wonder Twins monkey, but
Oh, okay.
yeah. The Wonder Twins show up in the like early '80s version of that.
Yeah.
And that's also when you get the Legion of Doom, where you get like Lex Luthor, Scarecrow, Brainiac, Solomon Grundy, Bizarro Superman. Those are like the main villains out of that.
Could you possibly
Was it
be
Black
talking
Manta
about
in that too? Okay.
Could you possibly be talking about Super Friends, the legendary superpowers show?
Probably.
Yeah, they like I said, they just kept renaming it shit.
There
and
was
that's why
also-
it lasted for so long compared to some of these other ones.
Also, in the late '60s or early '70s or whenever it happened, there was episodes of Scooby Doo, I think, that had Batman.
Oh yeah,
and
there was an
Robin.
Adventures of Batman show around this same time
Right.
too, and it was like the same Batman from the Super Friends.
Adventures of Batman 68.
And I think, like I said, the New Adventures of Superman. I think that was the Superman from. They just took that version of Superman and put him in the.
And there's
Superman.
also
And then you also have Robin, who is voiced by Casey Kasem, who also at the same time is voicing Shaggy from Scooby Doo.
and he also did the voice of one of the characters from the Battle of the Planets, which was Gotcha Man. There's the you mentioned. I barely remember this as a child. and you mentioned it, Brady, the Plastic Man hour or whatever it was called.
This one I never watched. I
Plastic
read the
Man comedy adventure show.
Right. And it was more of a goofy thing.
79.
And then also...
Yeah, he was a super goofy superhero in the comics, too.
Briefly mention this. Because of the popularity of superheroes, Hanna-Barbera made their own Blue Falcon and Dynamite.
Oh, yeah.
Which those guys were also in a crossover episode of something else. I think it might have been Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, a lot of those Hanna-Barbera stuff like would cross over.
Yeah.
That was a pretty big thing.
I know, especially with Blue Falcon, they've done numerous crossovers with Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. And the only reason I know Blue Falcon and Dynamite is from all the parody stuff that comes with the Adult Swim cartoons.
Right.
That's where I know him. I think
They did a Harvey Bird.
Dynamite, but he was also in a couple of other things too. I think he was also in that Scoob movie that came out a while back, a few years ago.
Yes,
the 3D animated Scoob.
Oh yeah, I didn't watch that.
I didn't watch it either, but I just remember seeing that he's a plot point.
Right.
Yeah. I unfortunately saw it.
But yeah, like
good,
the shows that stuck with me because I was like probably like 9 or 10. Because the thing is, like, also 70s and 80s, like, quote unquote children's programming, what they would do is if you and don't do it right now, Ethan, but for the audience, if you want to like really have an idea of what it was like, if you look up the Wikipedia and look at blocks of like the children's programming that was shown, cartoons that were shown on Saturdays, specifically on Saturdays, because that's the only time they showed cartoons back then, is that they would make like a handful of shows and they would rerun the shit out of them like for syndication forever. And they would make 1 or 2 new shows a year and they would keep rotation. Like Thundar the Barbarian had 10 episodes, but they kept it running for 3 or 4 years. And so the shows I remember the most when I was younger was the Super Friends, the iteration with mostly the Wonder Twins, and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Yeah. I loved that show more than I loved any of the other ones during that time period.
All of this stuff, so like Super Friends and stuff like that, I got from watching on like Cartoon Network or later Boomerang.
Right.
All these other ones like Superman and His Amazing Friends, the Fantastic Four. Later in the 80s, there was an Incredible Hulk TV show.
There was.
All of these, I would rent the same movie a video that had like the same 2 or 3 episodes over and over. And just watch them. I think I had an actual video that had 1 episode of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It had the Chameleon, and it also had Namor and a few other people in it. I remember Namor. They fuck him up because they put him in a place with like a heat lamp, so he jumps in the water, and the water's actually just rubbing alcohol, so it dries him out.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Just
the Chameleon fucks him up.
Just kill him at that point.
But yeah, I can't remember who else was in that. It's been so long since I've watched that. But yeah, I watched the hell out of that 1 episode. With these, it was like 1 or 2 episodes. I think with the Incredible Hulk, it was just like the origin of him like getting exposed to the gamma radiation and becoming that. And then I think that there was an episode where Jennifer Walters becomes She-Hulk. I just watched those 2 things like over and over and over again.
Yeah, in the early iterations of Cartoon Network before Boomerang existed, and before Cartoon Network really had more than just 1 or 2 original shows, they showed those in all those shows and a lot of them in reruns for a long time. And it really wasn't, for me, like there was like pretty much... excluding the early 80s, as far as newer superhero cartoons, there really weren't any. Up until like the early 90s, there was like probably at least an 7 or 8 year gap where there really wasn't any new cartoons.
And I really think like the 90s, and it could be, this is also possibly nostalgia talking, but I think the 90s were like kind of the golden era of these Superman of these superhero cartoons. Because and this is where all of these things where I was watching it when it came out, and I was watching the hell out of them.
I mean, '92, you get Batman the Animated Series.
Batman the Animated Series is
Well, I would like to at this point spotlight a specific name, and that is Bruce Timm.
yeah,
Bruce Timm on the DC side of things. If you like Batman the Animated Series, writer, producer, developer, showrunner, all four of them. When Superman's animated series comes out, he is the producer, developer, showrunner for it. He didn't write as much as for that one. Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, both are him as well. Batman Beyond, he's also the producer on that one. There's so much that we have.
On the DC side,
on the DC side, we have so much to be thankful for Bruce Timm, because he really captured the essence of these characters in a way that
there's even a few of the DC animated movies that he did too.
Yeah, I know he wrote Justice League Gods and Monsters. I think he's been a producer.
He did Batman, Harley Quinn. He did a few of them.
And I think he's been a producer or the producer on pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, Future Jay here. I'm coming in from the future because mea culpa. I made a terrible mistake during the recording by not giving credit to another one of probably the greatest animated creators in the last 20 to 30 years, and that's Mr. Paul Dini. Paul Dini worked with Bruce Timm and actually was the co-creator with him on Harley Quinn, and also on Terry McGinnis, who we all know is in Batman Beyond. Paul has an extensive writing history. Most of the stuff that you probably know for him is going to come from the Batman era, the Batman the Animated Series. He helped co-create the New Adventures of Batman. He worked on the Superman Animated Series as well. Also, and I found this kind of funny, we mentioned Freakazoid a little later, quick spoiler. That was Bruce Timm and Paul Dini as well. So when you hear that, just remember that in your mind. The man who created the stoic, new animated face of Batman also created the most... energetic. I'll leave it at that for right now. I probably said something worse later, but we'll see. But also, probably for our video game fans out there, Paul Dini was the writer behind Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. So if you ever wondered why those felt so authentic to the original animated series, it's because you had one of the authentic creators of that series. Mr. Dini, I apologize for not mentioning you in our show. I hope this helps correct that now. And for everybody, let's get back to the present, which was my past. And also your future.
We could almost have like a whole episode on Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah,
for
we
me.
might we could have
just on Bruce Timm, because
like talking about him.
Looking up the stuff that
I need to watch more of those shows though.
Do you like Harley Quinn? He created her.
Because I watched Batman the Animated Series, but that show was so good to me that when they started doing other stuff, I was just like,
yeah, and they even like the fourth season, I believe that's when they change the look of everything up, and it becomes the New Adventures of Batman.
Because Robin
becomes Tim Drake,
and because the earlier seasons you had a more like realistic, like in my opinion, looking Robin. Robin looked. Honestly, he looked the way like I feel that Robin is what becomes Teen Titans Robin as a kind of an evolution going that way.
And in fact, canonically, that is Tim Drake in the Teen Titans show, which we'll get to. But it changes up. But yeah, because Dick Grayson as Robin is like he's college age like throughout the entirety of the when he's Robin. Yeah. And then they finally get a younger Robin.
And then on the Marvel side, during the early 90s, we have the Spider-Man show.
Let's start out with the X-Men.
The X-Men.
X-Men, and then comes into Spider-Man. I've lost my love for the look of those series over time, because when I was a kid, it's like, oh, this looks so awesome. This looks so great. And then you look at it and it's just like, all of those backgrounds are still, there's like no motion to the background at all, and it's all them just moving in the foreground, which I kind of
just you didn't notice it at the time.
Yeah, no, it's something that as you get older you notice there. So but to me, like if there's one place where I think we can almost safely argue that DC has held it over Marvel, it is in the animated in the TV series and movie department.
Well, for me, like I was much older. I was probably like around 20-ish when a lot of those shows started. So for me, like I can still look at it with like, oh man, I remember that when I was, because I watched Batman the Animated Series for that show was like a daily. Like they showed it in the afternoons.
Yeah.
That was Fox.
I remember coming home and watching. It was X-Men and Batman the Animated Series.
Right.
And then it was eventually Spider-Man.
Right.
just watching all of
And
those.
also, X-Men
Well, I'd
and
watch-
Spider-Man were like Saturday morning cartoons where, like Batman was 5 days a week. Always
It's
5
wild
days a
though
week.
because they were both on the same network.
Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all on Fox.
yeah,
Fox
they would
Kids.
show like reruns of X-Men and Spider-Man, and then the new episode would be on Saturdays.
Didn't
for
they have a
those.
Fantastic Four cartoon
Yes, there
in
was
the
a
90s?
Fantastic Four in the 90s. There was also an Iron Man.
I remember that
in the
one.
90s. It came out in 94.
Right.
94 to 96.
I think there's also
There was an Incredible Hulk in
Incredible Hulk.
'96. There was also the Silver Surfer. Like this is an era where and like except for the Silver Surfer, like all of these, this is like Marvel doing the shared universe before then, because like Spider-Man showed up in the X-Men.
Right. Punisher showed up on Spider-Man.
Punisher showed up on Spider-Man. Iron Man showed up on in
Fantastic
Spider.
Four.
Well, he showed. I can't remember. I didn't watch. I don't remember much of the Fantastic Four show, but he showed up on Spider-Man. He helped him fight Carnage. Like they all worked in. They were all in the same universe. So when you see like these cameos that happen in
there is
Daredevil also showed up in the original show too.
Probably.
There was an episode of the Spider-Man show where he's having to fight like multiple versions of like the Green Goblin, and he's actively calling on like Storm, Wolverine,
Yeah.
Iron Man, just all these other superheroes from multiple other shows because of these like big crossover events.
Now,
Well, there's literally an episode where he's like, this is when the part of the Spider-Man show where he's like, his mutation is kind of going out of control, and he goes to the X mansion and like talks to him. He's like, "Hey, could you help me with this?"
Right.
And they're
Yeah.
like, "Can't do anything for you. Sorry."
now in the mid 90s, because of underground like comic book companies that used to have, well, that were what some of the artists were once like working for DC or Marvel, both like spawned another series of darker, sometimes darker cartoons.
Yeah.
Besides Jim Lee's Wildcats.
Oh, I remember. Oh, I didn't write that down. I watched
Yeah.
the hell out of that show.
Jim Lee's Wildcats.
That was so fucking weird.
Wildstorm gets ignored, I think, for a lot, especially now because it got sold to DC, and then
Yeah.
and then just it all got devoured into the greater DC universe.
And then
man.
there's also the from that you got Image from that, and then also the Max for MTV
Yeah.
as well. And then on the Valiant comic side, you had they had a superhero show. I can't remember the name of the show, but it was based off of like Prime, all of their superheroes. And then they had not necessarily superhero, but they have Exo Man of War.
Oh, okay.
No. They
Wait.
didn't. No, they didn't have Exo Man of War. They had what was that other?
Isn't X-O Man of War Marvel?
No,
No.
he was
It's
Valiant.
It's Valiant. It's
Why
Valiant.
am I an idiot then?
Because
Okay,
no,
my
he was in because I have a Game Boy game that was Iron Man,
Iron Man,
and
X-O Man of War. Okay,
I
thank you.
always get Exo Man of War and Exo Squad confused in my
Oh,
brain.
yeah.
That's what it is.
Exo Squad was Discount Gundam.
So-
Yes, it was.
but the toys were fucking awesome.
They are. No, I'll
One
co-sign on
thing,
that.
one that I had forgotten, and he's kind in the show. He's a superhero. If you read some of the comics, he's not really a superhero, but he is in DC, and that's Swamp Thing. There's a cartoon.
There
of that
was
in
a cartoon of
90
Swamp
that came
Thing.
out in '90. I remember very vividly watching that. I didn't get to watch very much of it, but I remember really liking it. I think I also bought some toys of it.
Not Saturday Morning Fair, but Spawn.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, like, yeah, this is an
So-
era where we're exploring, exploring children's media and also like mature
Well, yeah, when you
and
got stuff
almost
like
to
the
adult
Max,
media.
The Max,
Yeah.
Max, Spawn.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
Spawn was when I learned because it came out on like video and DVD as,
Right.
as like they put it together and made like 3 movies basically. And this is when I found out that cartoons could be not for children.
Yep.
Because I saw Spawn and I knew a little bit about Spawn. I didn't know very much. I just wasn't super into like if it wasn't like Marvel or DC, I didn't know a
Right.
whole lot about it. But I was like, oh, this is a cartoon like superhero looking thing. Please rent it for me. And it being a cartoon, my parents were like, okay. And then I go and watch it. And I'm watching it, of course, on like the living room TV. It's in my I was actually watching it in my grandmother's house, and some titties just pop out, and I'm like, did I just see that? Did I just see titties, animated titties? And then later on, there's like some dudes on the phone. And he's got 2 chicks with him, and they don't have tops on. And my grandmother walks
HBO.
in
That's
and was
not
like,
the time you want to have.
"What are you
grandma."
watching?" And I was like, "I don't know what I was watching," and I was just like, "I didn't know this is a cartoon."
This isn't my
You
fault.
instinctively knew to stay the fuck quiet.
So we brought that back, and that's why from then until that place burned down, there was a little warning on it that says, this is animated, but not for children.
Brady's the reason why they had to put stickers on Spawn
For real.
DVDs and
For real.
VHS tapes.
In my hometown, yes, I
yeah.
was specifically the reason.
Yeah,
But
whoops.
yeah, that was an eye-opening moment for me as a child.
Back to
at that video place over in Ocean Springs, they actually did those stickers on the Super Nintendo games too.
Oh.
I can assure you those games were rented. Not a single pixel titty in sight. So yeah, only in the animation.
Now, because of all these like really awesome superhero cartoons, there's another thing that's happening, and I don't want to talk about it too long because it's not technically superheroes, but I guess you could consider the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles superheroes, couldn't you?
I was going to mention that.
100%er, yes.
I was going to mention
I don't consider
that.
them like superheroes, but they do come up. I'm not going to get like super mad and argue about it. I didn't put anything down with them.
I'm of the opinion,
Mutagen.
If you
Yeah.
consider Daredevil and the X-Men superheroes, then yes, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are superheroes.
Well, I would say Punisher and like not really Batman. He doesn't have any superpowers per se.
I don't necessarily think it's superpowers that make you a superhero because again, there's Batman,
right, of
the
course.
Punisher, and things like that. But then I just don't
Do
consider.
you consider that they're just they're turtles
they're a different thing to me than
that
than
know
like,
how to practice
and
kung fu?
Of course,
and
they were
ninjutsu.
created as a lampooning of like superheroes,
Right.
stuff.
specifically Daredevil,
Right.
and the X-Men.
and the
Right,
X-Men.
right.
But I just don't consider them, so I didn't write down any of that stuff.
Yeah, and there's a million turtle clones too, for that
Yeah.
matter. Tiger sharks,
I
street
think that's
sharks.
something. Somebody write this down in the document because I've written a whole bunch of stuff down in the document of like we could do a whole thing on just Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and their clones,
Right?
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Because there's
and the
tons-
directions those go.
I'm
off
down.
in.
I'm
Yeah.
down for that at some point.
The Cowboys of Moo
Guess
Mesa.
I'll write it since nobody else is doing it.
Biker mice from Mars.
Cowboys of Moo Mesa.
Yeah.
When it comes to the mutant turtles, like the animated shows, I want to say it's either 2009 or 2012 where the Nickelodeon kind of like rebooted the turtles. And
Yep, they sure
that
did.
that was a decent show running, and then they had Rise of the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
And I very much enjoyed
I didn't watch that.
I
That was the one where Shredder was Krang, right? Shredder was actually like a Krang in a Krang thing.
Yes.
In
Yes.
like his body was actually.
Like,
There was
Shredder, bring me my body.
there was one before that though. I think there was a bad Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that came out before that good one that came out. Like I remember that happening.
You mean Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3?
No.
Where they go back in time?
I'm not talking
I
about
was young
that.
enough that I actually liked that one, but I
If
knew
you're
it, but I knew
younger,
it wasn't
yeah.
as good.
No, as a child, I kind of dug that movie, but there's like, children are idiots because I was an idiot and like that. movie.
Ninja rap.
That was 2, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
Ninja Rat was
it
With,
was.
with Kevin Nash as Super Shredder.
and Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice did a Ninja Rap.
I will not have you disparage the good name of Toka and Razor.
Yeah, Toga and Razor.
Razor would eventually go on to team with Occam and form the Acolytes of Pain.
So back to cartoons.
I want to bring this back. Teen Titans.
Yeah,
we gonna skip?
I think now we can talk
I feel
about
like
like the
we're in-
2000
we're
that
in the
2000s era, that
Yeah.
post 90s.
This is where this is the era of animated superheroes that I grew up watching.
Yeah, and I was
That's-
still really watching it
Yeah.
at this time too. So like,
What year did Teen Titans start?
Teen Titans is 2003.
Yeah.
But before that,
Okay.
You have Justice League in 2001.
Justice League,
Okay.
and then
That
which became
Justice League and Justice League Unlimited is to me a very good bridge between because it is again produced by Bruce Timm, so you
Yeah.
have that 90s, but you also have now
A
you're
little bit
starting
before
to get
that is Batman Beyond.
Batman Beyond.
Batman Beyond. You
Which
also have Static Shock.
Static Shock's another
So
one.
we have to mention that I didn't watch that one because it was on WB and I didn't have access to WB.
Same.
So a lot of these it's later on when I actually
That's
get
one
to,
of my favorite reimaginings of Black Lightning.
Yeah.
Like just in
Yeah.
general, I thought they did a fantastic job with that. But like taking the kind of black exploitation out of it and
Yeah.
like still
Right.
respecting that fact, but then
Yeah.
also creating stories that anybody can really
Always
kind of
good,
flash
yeah.
on.
yeah,
always
that was
good
one
to
I
do
just
that.
didn't.
But that Justice League series is a great bridge going into what would become the more modern era of what we're dealing with now. But with Bruce Timm still kind of very much in there as far
Yeah.
as the DC end of things.
And before Justice League, you also had the Superman animated series,
Yeah.
which was one of the like exemplar versions of Superman. You
My
know,
favorite episode of that is when Clark Kent is assassinated, and because he's figuring out that the cop who like charged this guy with murder is actually the one who committed the murder, and he's getting too close, so he plants a bomb to blow up Clark Kent,
Ooh, yeah.
and everyone thinks Clark is dead, and then I would say, "Oh, it's Superman." It's like, how did he escape from the bomb? Oh my God, he's Superman! And then you see the fucking lever on the electric chair flip over, and he's just fried. Oh
Damn.
my God!
Superman the animated series was one I didn't get to watch very much because again that's Batman Beyond I've only recently like fully watched. Superman the animated series I've only recently fully watched because that's when all of these shows, these Bruce Timm shows, like moved to WB and I just didn't have access to that channel.
I need to. There is something we missed in this, and I feel we would be remiss to say. So Kevin Conroy is Batman.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, that's my Batman. If I think of the way Batman looks and sounds, I'm thinking of Batman the animated series, and and the voice I'm hearing is Bruce Timm.
That is also my Batman.
Superman, you know, in the older generations, when they think of Superman, they're probably thinking of Christopher Reeve. When I think of Superman, it's from Superman the animated series, and I cannot remember his name, but it's the guy who does Superman. in that.
Right.
The two of them. One of my favorite dialogue interactions was from Injustice 2 between the two of them because it's the fight right there at the very end with Batman versus Superman, and he goes, it's like those were good days. It's like, yep, like we came to tell you that Lois was pregnant. You already knew, like I didn't have to tell you. That
Tim
was a good-
Daly.
Tim Daly.
Tim
Yeah.
Daly.
Tim
Yeah,
Daly, yeah.
yeah.
The interaction between the two of them, like you could tell there was respect for each other and the actors there and the years that they had put behind those characters.
Yeah. And then, yeah, like you said, we have Teen Titans, which is a very good version of that that team. It can go from weird and serious. They do a really good job of it in the show. They call him Slade, but it's Deathstroke. Him being the main villain is like they do a very good job.
Is just an absolute monster when it comes to like
Yeah.
That is Ron Perl, and that's
Yeah,
Ron
I was about to say
Perlman.
that was Ron Perlman, and it's hard to pick up on him as him because he's not sounding a lot. He's doing a very like
Gravelly kind of.
well, he's doing almost monotone, like
Yeah.
he's like he
It
has no
sounds-
emotion.
it sounds like
So
robotic.
it's really, yeah, it's a robotic, and you usually don't hear that from Ron Perlman. So it takes a little while to like pick up on him.
And like the
also,
psychological
let's call up
aspect.
Clancy Brown, you know, Lex Luthor, and several other people. You got Mark Hamill. So all of these who are in this like
Remember, kids, the voice of Lex Luthor and the voice of Mr. Krabs is the same person.
exact same person, and he was also the head guard in Shawshank Redemption.
And the Kurgan in Highlander.
Everyone.
yeah, that's what gets me.
Luke Skywalker is the Joker.
yeah,
Luke Skywalker is the Mad Hatter.
That was-
Luke Skywalker is 4 other characters on Batman the
Yeah.
Animated
Yeah.
Series.
it was really
Luke Skywalker is the trickster from The Flash, I believe, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
he
He
is.
is. He also played Mixelplix in
Oh, yeah.
one of the Superman TV shows in the 80s.
okay in the 80s. I was about to say because Gilbert Godfrey was Mixelpix.
I think
in
it might have been Lois
the
and
Bruce
Clark,
Timm
or I
show.
might be misremembering it. But anyway, he did play Mixelplix
I
in something.
remember Howie Mandel was Mixelplix in the Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman.
Yeah. But what was interesting about all these shows, like the Teen Titans and the Justice League and all of these, it was this. They would use the same voice actors for all of these. So
Right.
if Batman showed up in one of these shows,
It was Batman.
it was Kevin Conroy. You know, if the Trickster showed up in Justice League, it was going to be Mark Hamill. If the
Right.
Joker showed up, it was going to be. So you got used to hearing these voices,
Right.
And
Real quick, just as a weird crossover. So Lex Luthor on Smallville, Michael Rosenbaum. The Flash in Justice League, Michael Rosenbaum.
oh, okay,
Same
I
actor.
never put
Same
that together.
actor.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because that's two very different characters. And,
Yes.
and the Flash in the Justice League is like a very good character.
Mm-hmm.
It's Wally West. He's my favorite Flash. So yeah, let me see. Oh, and this time there were also Fox was also they were trying to do some more shows. There was an Avengers show called United They Stand. This was a very weird show. I only watched a handful of episodes. This is a very weird show because the makeup of the team was very, very weird. The leader was Ant-Man.
Okay.
Hank Pym was the leader.
Okay, Hank. I was wondering it was Hank Pym or Scott Lang. So
no,
Hank,
this was before Scott Lang was even a character.
Comics wise, Hank Pym being a leader of the Avengers makes sense to me.
Ultron was like the big bad.
Okay.
Vision eventually
Makes
showed
sense.
up. There
That
was
makes
Wonder
sense.
Man's
Wonder Man,
Wasp.
Wasp.
I think Wonder Man dies and his brainwaves get implanted in Vision. Scarlet Witch. I can't remember.
If you're gonna have Vision, you have to
Hawkeye.
Scarlet Witch. Hawkeye.
Hawkeye was in there.
This
Like it was a
isn't-
very weird. Like
to
it,
me,
but
that's not strange.
But there was
but
no
that's
Iron Man.
comics-wise.
There was no Captain America. There was no Thor. Like the things that when you think of the Avengers nowadays they
yeah,
weren't
no,
in
definitely.
this.
Well, I mean, the crazy thing is before Disney acquired Marvel, which happened right after 2 came out, Iron Man 2 came out. The reason why Iron Man was one of the big movies they pushed is because they had already leased out a lot of
They
their.
leased out the X-Men. They leased out Spider-Man. They leased out like a lot of the bigger names.
so they
And
didn't have those.
when that original Iron Man movie came out, like Iron Man was not seen as a very important character.
Hulk is still leased out to Universal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hulk
Like
is
they've,
still
they've got to
is
write
still-
around that in order to be able to get him in these movies.
which is why since the Incredible Hulk, there's never been another Hulk movie.
Right.
They're just allowed to use it. It's
That's
kind of
why-
like how they do Spider-Man now. But
That's
for
why
some reason,
Planet Hulk was actually Thor 3.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, there was also. So, did anybody else watch the MTV Spider-Man show?
That was was that Ultimate or was it?
It was just
something
called
else?
Spider-Man.
That was with hang on, that was with
That
Doogie
was with,
Howser as the
yeah,
voice.
yeah, Neil Patrick
I might have
Harris.
watched a couple episodes.
Neil
but I don't
Patrick
remember
Harris.
much.
That was right after the first Spider-Man movie.
Yes, like
And-
right after.
Yeah,
2001,
yeah,
2002.
And what I liked about that is they were going for a semi-realistic art style on that. I knew watching it, they were never going to be able to keep that up for the simple fact that creating that level of art in an motion thing for like any amount of time,
Right.
it's going to fucking drive
Yeah.
people crazy.
That one only had one
It
season?
had one season
And then
and
one
it ended on a
season, yeah.
big cliffhanger. He
Yeah.
quits being Spider-Man at the end.
Oh, shit.
Because him fighting with these twins, like they made up all new people. Like there wasn't hardly any known villains of his.
that
in
twin things from the comics. Those
They were lesser known, I guess.
Yeah, well, those in particular were the so during a breakup between Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy, Gwen hooked up with Norman Osborn, and they had twins.
No, they
And-
didn't.
yeah,
No, that's
no,
not how that works. We don't talk about sins past. We don't talk about sins past. We don't talk about one more day. We don't talk about them.
It was, and that's who
in-
those two.
in
That's
the
who those
MT
twos were based off of in that series that you mentioned. We're gonna have to
I
erase
don't
that too.
think sins past had happened at that.
I thought Sins Past had happened.
sins
at
past
that
was
point.
relatively new.
Because I remember still being in college when that shit went off, and we were just not happy about
Sins
it.
Past happened after One More Day, and One More Day didn't happen until after Civil War. And Civil War was like around 2006.
I
could be
could have
completely
sworn
off
that
of
was
that.
why they were based off of that, but I don't know.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was
Yeah,
a one
because it
season
never
show.
happened.
It was a good show. It was a good show.
Yeah, it was a good show.
It ended on a cliffhanger, which is very like he literally quits being Spider-Man. It's very frustrating because it was. I watched it and I was like, oh man, and the newer characters like his friends and everything, because they focus really hard on like him being friends and being in college with like Mary Jane and Harry Osborn.
Yeah.
Hey, funny story, because I was looking it up. Almost 20 years after its initial publication, Marvel has finally retconned the controversial and wildly panned Spider-Man storyline since past, removing any trace of Norman Osborn's involvement fathering Gwen Stacy's children.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, thank God. They fuck up with Spider-Man a lot. Like now, I don't think it's the same timeline, but they're doing like an Ultimate Spider-Man where he's actually still married to Mary Jane and has a kid with her, has a daughter.
Since past happened in 2004, the animated series you're referring to on MTV aired in 2001.
Okay.
So yeah, that was an interesting one. They started kind of throwing shit at the wall to try and see what sticks.
Wasn't there an Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon?
Yes, there were several.
Yes.
There was first before that there was Spectacular Spider-Man, which I haven't watched, but a couple of episodes of. But I've heard that's one of like the best Spider-Man shows. And what little I've watched was really, really good. It got canceled and it got replaced with Ultimate Spider-Man, and it's been said that one's not as good.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it I think is people not being liking Spectacular so much. The Spectacular Spider-Man actually shows up in Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah,
he's the Spider-Man that like when they're confronting him about it, he's the animated one, the animated looking one that comes up and
gotcha
and talks to Miles right before he like breaks out. But yeah, then there was the Ultimate Spider-Man. The Batman side, they had the Batman, which was kind of an alternate universe.
Is that the one with Diedrich Bader as the voice of Batman?
That's
Or
Batman,
is that Batman
Brave and the Bold,
Okay.
which was more of a bring it back to the wacky, wild Adam West
Camp.
kind of style, campy style.
Yeah.
But I've heard that one. What little I've seen of it, I like. I just it's just not my favorite style of Batman. The Batman, that was the one that had the Joker with the dreads who kind of like jumped around.
Yeah.
And it started off with just him, but eventually like it added like all the DC, like all the Bat
Is this
family and
around
all
the
of them.
time that John DiMaggio also takes on the role of the Joker every so often?
I think so.
Which
I
for
think the
anybody,
Batman
John
lasted-
DiMaggio's biggest voice acting role is Bender from Futurama.
Yeah, he was in Under the Red Hood, the movie.
Yeah.
I think this was around the same time that the Batman happened for. It went for several seasons, like 5-ish seasons. Like
I'm sorry. You go for it, man.
When it comes to like Batman, like Batman's design, his design in the Batman is my favorite.
that's a really good design, and it's a good show.
And,
like
Joker's portrayal is imagine a straitjacket that was managed to be put on a wild animal that just jumps around all
that
the place.
Joker was interesting because he was still the Joker, so he was kind of smart and scheming, but he was but he could actually fight
This dude
the
just bounced
Batman.
off of all the fucking walls.
The thing that really like knocked me back with that show is like in the second episode he fights Bane, and Bane beats the ever loving shit out of him. He has to build a robot to beat Bane. Like that's like he gets the shit beat out of him. They do everything but break his back in that one. Like he fucks him up. And I was like, man, that's impressive that y'all did that.
Isn't it about this time period when they start kind of winding down on like, regular TV cartoon superhero shows, or am I misremembering that? And they start doing like direct to DVD movies and shit like a lot more.
They do that
or is that happening at the same time?
I would say they don't close the faucet completely on television, because you have with Teen Titans becomes Teen Titans Go.
Yeah.
And that becomes a little bit more wacky as well.
It does.
as far
It does
as-
become a lull. I would argue on the Marvel side, they're still going because they start whenever like a new movie comes out in the MCU, they try and have because there was a Guardians of the Galaxy cartoon that came out in 2015 after the movie.
I remember the first Doctor Strange one they did was not very good.
Yeah.
So-
Oh yeah, they did have a Doctor Strange one.
So after this, after like the 2000s era, as we're going into like the 2010s, they kind of take, in my opinion, they take the shell of Justice League Unlimited and Teen Titans, and they kind of like meld that together to make Young Justice, which which
Young Justice is the product of all of these.
And they re-picked that up,
yes,
didn't they?
Yeah,
they did.
It got canceled, and then when Max came out, it was Justice League Outsiders, is what they
Yeah.
called it, I think.
I think it was just rebranded as
Young Justice Outsiders. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never got back. I never watched like the newer stuff of that. I need to go back.
I need to watch that.
That was interesting because they did like. I'm sorry, I cut you off. My bad.
It was like when Max picked it up and they said that, hey, we're making the final season. It reminded me of when I think Max also pick up when Disney Plus picked up Clone Wars and finished the final season of it.
Right.
It gave me that same type of feeling.
Yeah,
Closure.
that one
Closure,
was
yes.
interesting because it actually had like it let the characters grow up. Like Dick Grayson started as Robin, and he eventually became Nightwing.
yeah.
And Tim Drake took over as Robin in the show. So they like let them kind of grow up, and that was very interesting.
Right.
Like I said, I've watched the first, what was it, like 2 seasons of Young Justice, and that was really, really good. But yeah, on the Marvel side, you had like Avengers: Earth Mightiest Heroes, which had like the classic idea. It had the Captain America, it had the Thor, it had the Iron Man, Black Panther. And they went through like a lot of like the classic stories. That one I watched a few years ago, and that one like that's really good. Like you want to see shit with Kang the Conqueror,
Right.
Ant-Man and Wasp are in it too. They do Ultron stuff, which is pretty good. Like that one is like really, really good. That's one of the better like newer-ish shows of that. There was also I never got to watch this show and it's hard to find now, but BET actually did a Black Panther show.
Oh shit.
I think Wesley Snipes was T'Challa in that.
See, I don't know if that's because I know before he was Blade, Wesley Snipes wanted to get a Black Panther project up and running.
I know he wanted, but this was like an animated show.
Yeah, I know, but like he wanted to do a live action Black Panther, and that era Wesley Snipes, I think it would have been amazing.
Was Blade ever animated in anything, or
He
I wanna
was
say
in the
yes.
Spider-Man TV show.
Yeah,
Okay.
because he teams up with Morbius,
Yeah.
and they go on Morbid
in the
time adventures.
in the 90s version?
Yeah,
Yeah. Where Morbius took plasma from people because blood is like not cool.
yeah. You can't say people are sucking blood. They're removing,
And he
plasma.
had to suck it through like suckers in his hand.
Yeah.
He had like suckers on his fingers.
Which to me is
Creepier?
Way creepier.
Yeah.
Way fucking creepier. What the fuck?
Let me touch you with my fingertips.
But just to briefly, as a
I
tangent,
apologize. Tay Diggs was
okay.
Black Panther in that.
That's a good choice too. I like
yeah.
Tay Diggs.
Another thing about that Spider-Man, while you're looking this up, another thing about that 90s Spider-Man is that they had, it was serialized in a way, but it also had an ongoing storylines. Like you got to see Peter's professor, Dr.
Connors.
Dr. Connors, and you saw him as Dr. Connors. And then 2 episodes later, he became
The lizard
guy. So you would see progression. They did the whole like man spider arc in that. They did the Venom arc was in that.
They sped through so much stuff in that show.
X-Men was the same way. They sped through, the Phoenix saga and everything. Like it was
the Shi'ar Empire out of clear blue fucking sky. Yeah.
Speaking of X-Men, there was also X-Men Evolution. Which, which lowered the ages of it. Basically put them in a high school,
right?
Which was
still
interesting.
Kept Wolverine as kind of like,
Wolverine was the old person.
Man.
They also did Wolverine and the X-Men. I never got a chance to watch.
I didn't watch any of that.
But I've heard it's good. One that we this is not a super well known property. But one thing that we forgot from the 90s, and it's because I didn't put it near all the other 90s show, The Tick.
Oh,
I was thinking of The Tick.
Top Cow.
The Tick.
Spoon.
Yeah.
Spoon.
The Tick was an absolute lampoon of like superhero tropes and everything.
Right.
I am only familiar with The Tick because of my father.
Yeah.
Because he much like how he thought that Cool World was similar to Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
In the most tacit, like boiled down
Unlike
version. Yes, that's
that
true.
comparison, the
But-
Tick
Batman
was
well.
the Tick was actually
Batman well.
I enjoyed
the Tick was actually really
I
good.
enjoyed
Well, in
the
the
Tick.
in the
The live action version.
in that he was called that in the live action version. In the cartoon, he was Deflator Mouse.
That's
Deflator
right. Yeah,
Mouse.
that's right.
Just remember Chairface Chippendale writing his name on the moon, and he
Yeah.
only gets like part of the way through before the Tick stops him.
Yeah.
So from then on, from the first episode on, whenever they showed the moon, they would always show like a C and then like half of an H. It
So
was
in the original comic book, do you know who the Tick is?
No.
He doesn't know either.
No.
Yeah.
He's completely insane.
Yes.
He's
The,
he's just crazy.
They also made the live action Tick with Patrick Warburton as the Tick, and then
Yes.
Drake's coffee cake.
6 years ago, Amazon I think had a Tick show.
I think they had
Yeah.
a one season,
I think it had two.
maybe okay.
Because I'm pretty certain I've watched both of them. That one was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a
that
secret
one was
message in my teeth.
That one was darker because I think the original Tick comic was darker. So
It was
more towards-
darker, and then the original live action show wasn't very good.
If we want to talk about
20
crazy animated superheroes, I want to briefly talk about Freakazoid.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I thought about putting him on here.
Freakazoid.
I never watched Freakazoid.
that
It was
was-
directed
I
by
never
Steven
watched it.
Spielberg.
Later on, when I got to watch, that one was one that I didn't get to watch when it first came out, but I got to watch it later on when I got access to like Cartoon Network and WB and all that.
The
that one
show,
was surprisingly like
it was
fun
pretty.
to watch.
It was good, and I'll tell you real quick, crazy ahead of its time. The plot point is a teenager gets zapped through the internet and turns into a superhero.
Yeah, even with like reruns, I just never got around to watching it.
That one's surprisingly good. I haven't
It
watched
is
it in a while.
manic, like in the purest definition of the word.
The
it is
energy of that
absolutely
show
manic.
is off the chain.
Yeah. I think,
Also, aired on primetime for the first 6 episodes.
Okay. I think that kind of leads us into like the more recent stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we're kind of hopefully getting towards like a kind of a renaissance. I'm hoping, especially with like X-Men '97.
both,
97.
both figuratively and literally. Like again, when you mentioned X-Men '97, we're seeing the rebirth of these shows that did not have endings that we are now getting either full endings for or continuations that I feel are going to lead to where we can finish these off
Yeah.
and kind of cap off these kind of very very great shows. I hope they do a Spider-Man one. But
Yeah, I
that's
do
gonna,
too.
But that's going to require getting with Sony and working that out between those two. So we'll see there.
Well,
But
they're doing a new Spider-Man show. I think it was in work before. I can't remember what. I think it's called Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But they have said that like a continuation of the Spider-Man cartoon is we could see doing that, so that it's at least on the table.
You have the Harley Quinn show.
Harley Quinn show is very good.
that show is very good at poking fun and in a way that isn't completely cynical of like both the history of Batman, both in the comics and in the animated
Yeah.
space.
Because that's
While
where she
also-
was born, right?
Yeah, she was. She comes from the anime. Bruce Timm, I believe, is
Yes.
actually her creator.
Right.
So you have that, but it's also paired with like stories that are actually moving and actual. It's not a parody. It's an actually plot driven
Yeah,
story.
and it actually does a really good job of showing what a little freak Batman actually would be in real life.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, for sure.
He's
Also-
just a bundle of fucked up. Like that's
Also voiced by Diedrich Bader in that.
yeah.
So, I shout out to Kaylee Kyoko for the voice of Harley Quinn on that one. She's a fantastic comedian.
Yeah.
I know. Like this might get some eyes rolled, but she is one of the things that if you do watch Big Bang,
She's
she-
a better part of Big Bang
She's
than
the
people give her
she's the
credit
glue
for,
that
yes.
holds that show
Right,
together. Because for real and true, she is for the most part the audience stand-in because
Yeah.
there's all of these like strange and weird people, and she's like the most normal.
We also have on Amazon Prime we have Invincible,
I need to watch that still.
I've watched the first season. I haven't gotten around to watching.
There's also
the second
Animated
season.
Boys as well.
Yeah,
There's an
they did
Animated
the
Boys.
animated. There was an animated.
Well, the boys is did they do an animated?
They
There was
did
like
an
in
Animated
between,
Boys.
like the second
Second
and
and
third
third
season.
season.
They did like an anime, like a short
Okay.
animated show. It wasn't like super long.
Okay.
I didn't get. I'm so far behind on the
Yep.
boys as well that I haven't watched that. There's also what if series.
I am absolutely in love with the What If series.
I never finished the first season for some reason.
Same.
I don't know why. I liked a lot of the stuff that I saw.
Yeah.
Like it's like the what if.
What
the,
if
the Black Panther becoming Star-Lord was like really cool to me.
What
like
if
that was one of
T'Challa
my
was picked up by the
yeah,
Ravagers?
that was my favorite thing that I'd seen out of that. But
What if what if Carter became
Captain America. That was
Yeah.
actually pretty cool too.
I liked. I think what kind of made me stop watching was they started. Like when I found out they were kind of moving it towards a cohesive story, and I kind of
Yeah.
wanted them to just keep it into a
Right,
just do
because that was the
standalone-
whole draw of the original.
Let's just do standalone story
comic
that's
book
what,
series.
Because that's what
Because it was just
What If
anthology
did.
stories.
Yeah, it was really just like one issue was one story, and that was it.
all
you know?
from the point of view of the Watcher.
The Watcher was a good thing to tie it together. I do like that.
I like Uatu. I
yeah.
really do. I love that character.
The Watcher is a cool
specifically-
character.
I love his character from Alex Ross's Earth X, Universe X, and Paradise X. If we want to talk about just very briefly things that kind of broke off and didn't finish, I really wish they would have finished Universe X so that you could have some cap on that story. I thought Earth X is like the greatest what if story ever told. But it's I think Alex Ross mentioned it's his epitaph for the Marvel Universe.
Okay.
And so yeah, it is so like you to really appreciate it, you have to know the deep lore. Earth X you can get into. Once you get to Universe X and they start getting into like the quantum realm and all the cosmic shit and oh my god.
We've also got mentioned earlier in the show, My Adventures with Superman.
Yeah.
Is a really good show. The second season of that just started. I've watched the first 3 episodes and they're really good so far. I think they do a good job of balancing, Superman's daily life. I like that they talk about him more as Clark Kent than they do otherwise.
He's a young man who hasn't figured anything out, especially the fact that he can juggle planets.
Yeah. I don't really have. I think we've pretty much talked about everything.
Do we want
that I
to go
want to talk about?
Do we want to go to final thoughts then?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So I'll put it to the table. Just we'll start here with Ethan, work the way around. Ethan, just some final thoughts on animated superhero TV shows.
To me, like when you look at these animated like the Marvel and the DC comics, a lot of it is kind of like a lot of a serious tone, going from story to story. These animated series convey the same seriousness of the characters, but also show that these are majority humans or gods living amongst humans that show that they have humanity to them. That I think these animated shows really convey very well. It's if I had to pick a favorite, it's hands down the Teen Titans. Just hands down.
Teen Titans is really good. Yeah.
Jody, I see you sipping some beverage so that you can loosen up to give a good final word. What we got, sir?
I think that we are thankfully, hopefully, getting back to a really good spot for quote unquote traditional superhero animated series, because like X-Men 97 is a good example of them being able to cultivate an original show and really capture what made it work as far as like the essence of the original property that it's based off of, but not just the comic book storylines and the source material, but also trying to stay true to the original source material that was aired on television. Thankfully, because of streaming services, as much as we woe that sometimes, traditional television is not necessarily in a good spot as far as that stuff goes. But because of streaming, these shows have a place to live now. Mainly because now they're not just competing with themselves like they were back in the day, but they're also competing with other media, not just other animated media, but in that regard, there's also anime, right? That as far as time goes, like
and that's become more mainstream.
It's become more mainstream over the years. So I'm really, really happy that we are starting to get like a little bit more of a renaissance, because with the quote unquote downfall of the live action Marvel movies after quote unquote the end game of that 18 movie arc. These animated stories kind of keep me interested in the subgenre that is superheroes, because I do really love that subgenre. And so even though Marvel burnout was happening for a while, I think I'm becoming my love for it, the art form, is becoming rekindled just through these new animated shows. So I'm really excited to see what's going to be happening in the next couple of years to do with that.
Yeah, I hope that they keep the momentum going, because like I said, a lot of what Marvel was doing in the heyday of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was, Guardians of the Galaxy is out, let's make a cartoon with that too. Which I mean is a lot of what they do, but it seemed like it's like hopefully they're getting more to let's just let creative people do things with these shows.
Give people some creative freedom to do a little bit of interesting things.
That's usually when it works out best. I don't have that much faith in Disney to do that, but hopefully it continues with that. Since I was very, very young, I have been super obsessed with superheroes, and I would read comics every now and again when I could get my hands on them. But mostly where I got my information from was watching these TV shows. Probably about 80% of what I know from X-Men I got from the TV show, and then kind of was able to cross-reference it later. As I grew up, like it got less. I learned more from comics than I did, but like these were like, especially when we're talking about that 90s era, that was like the bedrock of my foundation of knowing about these characters. And it had a really big impact on like what I liked and what I disliked and what I thought about when I thought about these superheroes. So yeah, I'm like, it was a really big part of my childhood. And like going back through this, I started remembering like, oh yeah, I used to watch these 3 episodes of Incredible Hulk over and over again. I used to watch these. I remember watching Iron Man when it came on Fox and things like that. So like it brought back like, oh man, I have watched so much of this over and over, because whenever I would see something with a superhero, I would be like, okay, I have to watch this now. So it really had a big impact on me, and there's been some like really good, like I think some of the best like TV episodes period have been on like Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Like they've done like some really great work on there. And Bruce Timm, I owe him a lot of my childhood, and I'm hoping that like X-Men 97, it's reportedly been pretty popular, so I'm hoping that kind of kicks off this of, oh hey, let's keep letting people who have interesting things to say and can do a good job with these things, let's let them have these properties and just kind of see how they do. Like I said, I don't have that much faith in them to continue doing that, because all of these big corporations tend to learn the wrong lessons whenever they have a success. But hopefully this keeps going and this becomes like better and better. And we can kind of, this is the good type of nostalgia, I think. Like X-Men 97 is like, this is the nostalgia that you want. You want just people taking the ideas from something that you used to like and just going and continuing with the spirit of it, but saying things, modernizing it and things like that. So this is when, and I hope this just keeps happening. So yeah, that's all I got.
I'd like to end it on, to me, what is the gold standard of American animation, not even just in the superhero genre, and that is going back to Batman the Animated Series. Voice pitch perfect, scripts fantastic, scripts that entertain children and adults in the same way. that don't treat children like we have to pablamize everything in order to be able to entertain them or to present them ideas. If I had to pick out two things about that series that really stand out for me, no television series has has done horror at the level that the Batman the Animated Series is, whether it's body horror through the first Clayface episodes, whether it's kind of a proto-cyberpunk horror from the Hardak episodes where you don't know what's a human and what's an android.
Yeah.
There's so much that they do right in that style that I've never seen another animated series do as well, and have rarely seen done well in television just in general.
Well, we talked about the creation of Harley Quinn, but the recreation of Mr. Freeze, like Mr. Freeze until that point in that show was a joke character, and they made him into a very interesting layered
and
character.
much like that character, there was a lot of emotional weight to a lot of those stories too.
And my second thing, which comes off perfectly, so it's quite all right, because that's a good lead into my second part, is the human nuance that they're able to put in a children's television show in a way that children can digest, so that at an early age, it's not about blacks and whites, it's about shades of gray and character and who you can really see as evil. The episode that stands out in my mind is when Harley Quinn gets out of Arkham and she's trying to make a good life, and she just can't do it because matters of history, fate, however you want to put it, all kind of goes against her. And at the very end there, you have Batman, and he presents her that dress that she was looking to buy but couldn't do it, and then was accused of shoplifting it, and he hands it to her and he goes, "Why would you do something like this for me?" I had a bad day once too. I know what it's like to have your life turned upside down.
Yeah.
There's a part of the fandom in Batman that I know throw up at that scene because he isn't just punching her into a wall. That is what I want Batman to be.
Yeah.
A human being trying to do right, working out issues from a long time ago that he sees in other people and tries to help out. It's not just simply criminal punching.
Yeah. Well, in that vein, one of the best, the epilogue for Justice League Unlimited, that's one of the best Batman episodes of anything ever, where he just sits with a girl who is dying, who has extraordinary powers, but she's just using them because she's scared, and he's
given the order by Amanda Walker to kill her.
Yeah.
And he doesn't.
Yeah. He just okay, I'm gonna sit with her and I'm gonna just be there while she passes. And that's one of the greatest things that Batman's ever done in any of these shows. Like it's and that's from Bruce Timm, and that's from that Batman is just a straight line from Batman the Animated Series. So yeah.
The best superhuman stories are told as human stories, just with a very big megaphone. And we have that series as kind of a gold standard to look at and to be able to continue to look at for years to come. I will say this for streaming, it'll stream somewhere. It's that good. If Max decided to discontinue it, someone would get the license to be able to keep running it.
Yeah.
So,
luckily, I have the Blu-ray of all of it.
There you go.
I can watch it whenever I want.
Look at you with your Blu-ray of it.
All right.
I got it for sale on Prime Day, so just look for it when that happens.
So, gentlemen, the bus is pulling into the station. We have some thank yous and shout outs to do. I will get Brady do the first one because I know which one he can probably do, because he doesn't want to do these usually, but it allows him to do the one that he knows to do. Go.
Whiskey and Wrestling is a podcast that our friends Michael Hill and Jason Holder, I completely forgot his last name for a second there. It's late and I'm tired.
Yes.
Not as tired as Ethan, because I am not nodding off.
Yeah. I am trying my best over here.
Yeah.
We believe in you.
They talk about, modern day wrestling. Sometimes they'll go back and do some older reviews. Hopefully they get back to doing that, because
It's their cask-aged wrestling series.
a lot of wrestling sucks nowadays. So let's just, instead of bitching about something, let's talk about something older shit. Bitch about some old shit. That's cool.
Now, hang on. I am going to watch SummerSlam when Dominic Mysterio is in a shark cage and there is a custody battle between Rhea Ripley
The two mommies.
Yeah.
If she's
20
back by
years,
that
the
time.
repeat. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm with Jordan Grace. If it doesn't end with a custody
custody
of
battle.
Dominic,
Ladder
ladder match. What are we even doing this for?
Yeah.
I would argue right now wrestling is at a point where I don't think it has been better, and I don't think it has been worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about how that works.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, they talk about wrestling. They every episode they also try some different types of liquor, and they tell you all about that too. So if any of that sounds interesting, check them out wherever podcasts are. We're gonna go with Harvested this time.
Okay. Jody, give us some self-promotion or other promotion, your choice.
Clarion Sage is not a podcast, but it's a wonderful curiosity shop in Pascagoula, Mississippi that sells all kinds of interesting antique teas, incense, and little crystals and things of that nature. Okay. Clarion Sage. It's on Market Street.
Is your Mercury in retrograde?
Okay.
Come to Clarion Sage.
It sounds like I'm not new age enough to walk into that store.
You are not.
Ethan, promote something.
May I request the echo voice?
You want the echo. Okay.
Yes. Fear.
The mind killer.
It overtakes all of us. It leads you to ask the one important question. Did I shit my pants? Or did someone else?
Do you want to shit your pants?
Or do you want someone else to shit your pants?
Fearology. Listen to it.
You'll shit your pants.
Or shit in someone else's pants.
The completed podcast. Christopher Vega, Brandon Scott Tanner, and Brandon Smith talk about the world of competitive Magic from standard, modern, vintage, and other. What's another one? Standard, modern, vintage. Pioneer. There, that's another one. Mm-hmm. With some of the best interviews with Pro Tour Magic players that is going around today. Again, that is the completed podcast available on all major podcasting networks. Jody, another one, because they can't get Brady to do another one.
Give me the echo.
You want the echo?
Yeah.
Okay. Echo, engage.
We're just making these to where nobody can hear them.
Joke's on you. I put you on the echo.
Kevin Shelton. Jared Hubbard. They watch movies and stream them online.
I should have held the stream a little bit.
You should have. It's fine. Silence Your Cell Phones is a podcast where these two folks talk about movies and TV shows and whether or not you should watch them. Check them out. They're all on all the pods. Silence Your Cell Phones.
Bearded Drums.
Yes. Bearded Drums. Hosted by our good friends Jarrett Taylor and Stephen Nelson II. They talk about all things drumming from gears to gigs. Stephen Nelson, he will upload his own videos of him drumming to various songs and gigs at various locations on the YouTubes. Check them out. They have very deep in thought conversations about
except one of their opinions on Neil Peart, and that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Give them a listen to Bearded
They also have
Drums.
shitty opinions on
Led
John
Zeppelin.
Bonham.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This is why we don't have Brady do that one.
Yeah.
Funny story about Led Zeppelin. So one night, Jay's taking me home.
I thought this was going to be the Mud Shark. Oh, no, wait a minute. This is a good
Jay's
story.
taking me home.
Okay.
And we're almost to my house. We're like 2-3 minutes away from my house. And what sounds like the beginning of The Song Remains the Same starts on. And like, I'm not like a huge Zeppelin fan, but I don't mind them. And some of their songs can be catchy. So we're just like, neither one of us are acknowledging each other. We both think at the same time, like, Song Remains the Same. And then Tesla starts singing.
What?
Yeah, they have a song that starts exactly like The Song Remains the Same.
And it's like, no. And then I looked over at my radio and like the words Tesla appear and I would go, God damn it, this is Tesla. And then I wrecked the car.
Well, it's like that period of time when you were listening to the radio and you didn't know if you were listening to Werewolves of London or that shitty Kid Rock song, and
which was about Sweet Home, Sweet Home
which
Alabama.
also stole a lot from Sweet Home Alabama later on. But you started listening, and you're like,
Dun, 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 dun.
oh yeah, I love Werewolves.
I love Warren Zevon. Yeah,
fucking shit, Kid Rock, fuck you.
He's drinking Bud Light again. I'm just saying.
He was never not drinking Bud Light.
That is very true.
He did a concert at a rodeo. I don't even know if it was a concert, but he performed at a rodeo with a Tesla that was dressed up like that was painted like the General Lee, a Cybertruck on the back of it. It was the dumbest thing ever.
We'd like to thank Cameron Spanier and all the minions and grunts at MacNarb Gaming for providing us this wonderful studio space in which we recorded the show. MacNarb Gaming, they have puzzles and shit. We're going back all the way live. There we go. But yeah, so gentlemen, I think we are done. I want to thank you all. Just the three of you. I'm glad you're here this week. I'm glad you're feeling well, sir. I'm glad you're feeling well because you also had some crud in there. Brady, I'm glad you're being good and doing good and all things good. So yeah,
Death has overlooked you.
We're gonna figure out what we're doing next week, folks. But until then, my name is James McCarthy.
I'm Brady Davis.
I'm Jody Kite.
I'm Ethan Skinner.
We are travelers on the Animater bus, and we are out.
So when I started playing the NASCAR game, the soundtrack was familiar to me. It sounded like a song from like the mid-90s WWE Raw versus SmackDown games. It was like just this really weird like metal song, just super generic. I'm like, why is this here? This doesn't belong here. This doesn't make any sense to me.